Chapter 1740. Elder Feng looked at the dragon phoenix true body, with a mocking expression. Little beast, let me tell you. Although the divine powers that you've comprehended are not bad, you can only unleash a 10,000th of the power of this divine power. The true power of divine powers comes from the upper realm, Elder Feng declared proudly. Even if you ants of the lower realm have comprehended supreme divine powers, you are nothing before us. The dragon phoenix true body did not say anything. When instant youth and reverse scale were neutralized by a small divine power, he had already realized that the gap between them was not something that could be made up for by comprehending a few supreme divine powers. Even if he comprehended 3, 4 or even 10 supreme divine powers, it would be useless, let alone the 2 supreme divine powers that he had comprehended now. This was the gigantic gap between the lower realm and the upper realm that could not be crossed. That was the reason why the laws of heaven and earth were born in the billions of lesser kiliocosms, to prevent the experts of the upper realm from descending. That was because once the experts of the upper realm descended, the living beings of the lower realm would not be able to stop them at all. At that time, the billions of lesser kiliocosms would be filled with killing, blood and slavery. The power of the experts of the upper realm could even destroy a lesser kiliocosm. In a sense, the laws of heaven and earth were not only protecting the living beings of the lower realm, but also the billions of lesser kiliocosms themselves. Little beast, my patience is limited. Tell me the whereabouts of Qinglian's true body, and don't force me to search your soul. Elder Feng said faintly. There was a high chance that the soul-searching technique would fail. That was the reason why Elder Feng did not attack immediately. Otherwise, the dragon phoenix true body would not have lasted until now. Old dog. Suddenly, the dragon phoenix true body laughed with a mocking expression. I don't care if you destroy this true body of mine. However, remember this, I won't die even if this dragon phoenix true body is destroyed. When my other true body ascends to the upper realm, I'll definitely look for you. I'll make you repay this debt 100 times over. Little beast, how dare you threaten me? Elder Feng's expression darkened completely, and his gaze was cold. He reached out and grabbed the head of the dragon phoenix true body. Come out! Elder Feng hollered softly, and his palm enveloped down with an extremely domineering power. Against that power, the dragon phoenix true body could not move at all. He could only watch helplessly as Elder Feng's palm landed on the top of his head. Snap! The sound of bones cracking could be heard in the ears of the dragon phoenix true body. The next moment, the dragon phoenix true body no longer make a sound. This was because his head had been crushed into pieces by Elder Feng's bare hands. Hot blood splattered kiliocosm above the dragon phoenix true body, the dragon king long body, and the other's kiliocos body. Under this kind of power, there was only despair left in the eyes of the crowd. Even the human emperor's seal would not be able to shatter the physical body of the forbidden dragon phoenix, who had comprehended 2 supreme superpowers. Chili King. Kiliocosm B. Monkey and the others stood at the border of the north region with grief and indignation. A beautiful woman in a white dress let out a sigh upon seeing this. Kunlun ruins. Nianqi turned his head away, and could no longer bear to watch. Night Spirit growled and trembled slightly. He glared coldly at the 7 figures standing proudly in the firmaments with killing intent in his eyes. Nobody could stop the experts of the witch race from the upper realm. Against Elder Feng's palm, the head of the dragon phoenix true body shattered, revealing his consciousness. In his consciousness, the 11 demon kings roared furiously. However, they were shattered by the power of Elder Feng's palm. Against that immense power, the blazing ball of light that surrounded the dragon phoenix essence spirit shattered as well. There was a scarlet flame within the ball of light. The dragon phoenix essence spirit looked at the ball of flame in a daze. The final ball of light finally shattered. He had once looked forward to and imagined the scene of the ball of light shattering countless times. However, he did not expect it to be the situation today. The final divine power was nurtured within that ball of flame. The final demon king was also nurtured within that ball of flame. Comprehending that divine power meant that he had cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness to perfection. However, that was useless. Even if he comprehended that divine power, he would not be able to fight against the experts of the witch race of the upper realm. The difference in strength between the two of them was way too great. Furthermore, Elder Feng would not give him the chance to comprehend that final divine power. The Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit felt his vision darken. Elder Feng's palm had already descended. When his Essence Spirit was captured, there was only a single outcome left. Whether his soul search was successful or not, he would die in the end. It's a pity that I couldn't cultivate the final divine power, or cultivate the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness to perfection. The Dragon Phoenix true body sighed. However, a vicious and resolute look flashed through the eyes of the Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit. Su Zimo was never afraid of death. Furthermore, even if the Dragon Phoenix true body was destroyed, he would not truly die. However, he could not allow others to search his soul. That would be an insult to him. He would not allow anyone to obtain Qinglian's true body, or the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness from his memories. Old dog, if you want to search my soul, do it in your next life. The Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit let out a final roar, and an extremely terrifying power burst forth from his Essence Spirit. He's going to self-destruct his Essence Spirit. Hurry and stop him. A few experts of the upper world of witches were shocked when they sensed the fluctuation, and shouted one after another. A series of dark green powers extended from Elder Feng's palm hurriedly and coiled towards the Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit, wanting to stop it from self-destructing. However, it was too late. Boom! There was a deafening sound, right in front of the living beings of the 10,000 races. The Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit exploded and dissipated on the spot, turning into nothingness. The self-detonation of the Essence Spirit gave rise to a tremendous divine sense fluctuation. Even the surrounding void was shaken to the point that cracks appeared. The living beings of the 10,000 races were silent with sorrowful expressions. Nobody expected that the Dragon Phoenix true body would choose such a tragic method to fight against the experts of the upper world of the witch race. The self-destruction of one's essence spirit, and the dissipation of one's soul, would not even enter reincarnation. Even if they knew that they were going to die, not many people would dare to self-destruct their essence spirits to destroy themselves. Damn it! Elder Feng was enraged. The fact that he did not know the whereabouts of Qinglian's true body was secondary. More importantly, the resistance of the Dragon Phoenix true body gave him a sense of provocation. You're merely an ant of the lower world. Even if you have a taboo bloodline, you're nothing more than a beast. How dare you defy my will? Elder Feng's expression was cold as his gigantic palm enveloped down and grabbed the remnant body of the Dragon Phoenix true body tightly. The remnant body of the Dragon Phoenix true body was crushed by Elder Feng's palm and turned into a blood mist without a corpse. Genius 1 second. Remember this site address. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 1741. Even if you self-destruct your essence spirit, I'll still grind your body into ashes. Elder Feng said hatefully. After crushing the remnant body of the Dragon Phoenix true body, he clenched his hands and the blood mist that filled the skies was extinguished, turning into dust. It was truly reduced to ashes. The taboo Dragon Phoenix did not have any bloodline left in this world. Kunlun ruins. Su Zimo watched everything quietly in silence. The destruction of a true body was nothing to him. The only regret he felt was that he could not cultivate the final divine power and cultivate the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness to perfection. Young master, are you all right? Nianqi was worried about Su Zimo and asked softly. I'm fine. Su Zimo shook his head gently and murmured. It's a pity that I didn't manage to see what the final demon king was. In the final vision of the Dragon Phoenix true body, the ball of light shattered, and a ball of flames appeared. However, he did not have the chance to see what demon king was nurtured within the ball of flames before his essence spirit self-destructed. Suddenly, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, and his expression changed. What's wrong? Nianqi asked. Su Zimo frowned slightly with a strange expression. He merely shook his head and looked towards the place where the Dragon Phoenix true body died. Under normal circumstances, the self-destruction of the essence spirit of the dragon phoenix true body, and the destruction of its body meant that it was definitely dead. It was impossible for him to have any connection with the dragon phoenix true body. However, the strange thing was that when Su Zimo calmed his mind, he could still sense a hint of connection from the dragon phoenix true body from afar. However, it was extremely weak and faintly discernible. Could it be that the dragon phoenix true body was not dead? At the thought of that possibility, even Su Zimo was shocked. The living beings of the 10,000 races witnessed with their own eyes how the dragon phoenix's essence spirit protected itself, and its soul dissipated. Its body was reduced to ashes by Elder Feng. How could it still be alive? Just as Su Zimo's thoughts were running wild, the connection between him and the dragon phoenix true body became clearer. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he gazed into the distance. In the sky, Elder Feng's face darkened. Although the forbidden dragon phoenix had been reduced to ashes, it was still not enough to appease the hatred in his heart. Is there any other way to find out Qinglian's whereabouts? Elder Feng turned to look at the 4 rulers of the sorcerer tribe from Tianhuang mainland and asked coldly. A sorcerer ruler hurriedly stepped forward and said, Senior Xian Wu, Araki Takashi has many close friends on this continent. As long as we capture them, we'll be able to find the whereabouts of Qinglian's real body. The witch ruler did not lower his voice when he said that. The old storyteller, Long Ran, and the other cultivators heard him clearly. Damn it! Lin Xuanji's heart sank as he cursed. When this nether witch emperor said these words, it was obvious that he wanted to slash the guillotine towards them. Where are they? Elder Feng asked. Indeed, the emperor of the witch race pointed to the Dragonbone Valley swiftly and said in a deep voice, the human emperors over there, as well as the dragon, Kuan and barbarian race, are all close friends of Desolate Marshal. If they can't get anything out of them, there are still some people who are close to Araki Takashi. Another sorcerer ruler pointed in the direction of the border of the north region. Senior Xian Wu, don't worry. None of them will be able to escape. All right. Elder Feng nodded slowly and said expressionlessly, let's ask those emperors of the lower realm first. I don't believe that we can't find out the whereabouts of Qinglian. The 4 rulers of the sorcerer race straightened their backs and looked at the old storyteller and the other emperors above the Dragonbone Valley with arrogant expressions. Emperor Xian, this is retribution. 1,000 years ago, you summoned the human emperor. Did you expect this day to come? The old storyteller was silent. He had no choice in the situation 1,000 years ago. If not for the descent of the human emperor, the human race would have been defeated and would not have lasted until today. However, if the human emperor had not descended on Tianhuang mainland and destroyed the Tianhuang mainland, causing the world to be incomplete and the laws to be incomplete, the experts of the upper realm would not have descended. Furthermore, the cultivation realms of the upper realm witches did not fall, and they even possessed the power of the upper realm. Capture all these ants and bring them over. I want to torture them one by one. Elder Feng said indifferently. Understood. The other 6 witches of the upper realm agreed, and were about to attack. All of a sudden, a strange fluctuation came from the void beside them. Elder Feng and the others turned to look. Not far away, a flame the size of a fingertip floated in the void. It was scarlet and erratic, as though it could be extinguished by a gust of wind. A flame that could condense in the void without dissipating was definitely not ordinary. The aura of this flame seems familiar. Elder Feng frowned slightly in deep thought. It's that ball of light. Suddenly, Elder Feng recalled something. Just now, he crushed the body of the taboo dragon phoenix, and a ball of light at the same time. A ball of flame floated within the ball of light, and its aura was exactly the same as the ball of flame before him. Interesting. Suddenly, Elder Feng laughed. Even though the body of the taboo dragon phoenix was reduced to ashes by my palm, this ball of flame did not extinguish? In that short period of time, the ball of flame grew larger. Initially, it was only the size of a fingertip. Soon, it grew to the size of a fist and burned furiously, turning into a gigantic fireball that resembled a blazing sun. All the living beings of the myriad races widened their eyes in confusion as they watched this scene unfold before them. The power of divine powers? Suddenly, an upper realm which said softly, inside this huge fireball, there was actually a powerful divine ability that permeated the air. It's a supreme divine power, Elder Feng said slowly. The moment he said that, a tremendous life force burst forth from the fireball, and blood chi surged as though it was about to gush out. Roar! A roar that resembled a dragon's roar, and a phoenix's cry echoed through the world, and shocked the 10,000 races. That was the roar of the taboo dragon phoenix. Heavens! The taboo dragon phoenix isn't dead. How is that possible? Its essence spirit has already dissipated, and its body has been reduced to ashes. How is it still alive? A series of exclamations sounded from all over Tianhuang mainland. The 10,000 races were in an uproar. I've got it. In Kunlun ruins, Su Zimo murmured softly as though he had comprehended something. What's going on? Nian Qi could not help but ask in surprise and joy. Su Zimo said. The fourth ball of light shattered, and the final divine power was the nirvana of the immortal divine phoenix. Legend has it that the immortal divine phoenix had a powerful ability, nirvana rebirth. However, in reality, every nirvana was filled with immense danger for the divine phoenix. That was because there was a 90% chance of nirvana failing, and only a 10% chance of success. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, even the divine phoenix would not use nirvana. Of course, if it could succeed in nirvana, the combat strength of the immortal divine phoenix would increase tremendously. In the final ball of light, the final demon king nurtured by the ball of flames was the immortal divine phoenix. However, there was still no joy in Su Zimo's eyes. Even if it was reborn through nirvana and comprehended the third supreme divine power of the dragon phoenix true body, it would still be nothing against Elder Feng. It was just that it would die once more. End of chapter. Chapter 1742. It's the Nirvana divine power. Elder Feng narrowed his eyes when he sensed the energy fluctuation in the flames. To think that the dragon phoenix would have quite a number of trump cards. Another witch of the upper world was surprised as well. Elder Feng smiled faintly. As a supreme divine power, the Nirvana divine power is indeed powerful. It can be reborn from the flames, and it's equivalent to breaking the laws of life and death. However, the Nirvana divine power has a huge restriction as well, and the chances of success are extremely low. Even the divine phoenix race of the upper world does not dare to use the Nirvana divine power rashly. The woman from the witch race at the side said, I heard that after a successful Nirvana and rebirth from the flames, one's combat strength will increase significantly. So what? Elder Feng smiled and said, this little b** starred is just going to experience another round of baptism from the divine power. No matter how much his combat strength increases, he won't be able to cross the gap between us. That's right. Another witch from the upper world laughed as well. Now that the dragon phoenix is reborn, Elder Feng can use the soul-searching technique once more. This time round, it's impossible for him to self-destruct his essence spirit. Elder Feng said faintly. Flames surged in the void. The dragon phoenix true body was reborn from the flames and gradually regained consciousness. He also understood what happened to his body. The power of the Nirvana divine power baptized his flesh and essence spirit continuously. The dragon phoenix true body could clearly sense that the power in his body was rising rapidly. His body bathed in flames and became even tougher and unshakable. His bloodline was baptized in the Nirvana flames and became purer. His essence spirit also became increasingly condensed. Flames coiled around him like dozens of fire dragons circling around him. His entire body stood in the flames, and from the inside out, it was as if he had been burned thoroughly by the raging flames. Streaks of crimson light burst out from his body, and multicolored light filled the sky. This time round, let alone the 3 emperors of the primordial races like the underworld witch emperors. Even if there were 5 top emperors of the primordial races, the dragon phoenix true body could kill them all. However, through the raging flames, the dragon phoenix true body looked at the 7 upper world witches not far away with a grim expression. This was because even if he had comprehended the Nirvana divine power, and his combat strength had increased, This change was still not enough to fight against the powerhouses of the upper realm. Suzimo sighed inwardly. Actually, when the Dragon Phoenix true body was reborn and regained consciousness, he realized Daiyu's good intentions. Although Daiyu had left, she was still worried about him. He even left him 3 gifts, although he still didn't know what the 3rd gift was. However, the first 2 gifts, the Soraka flower and Divine Phoenix bone, were of great help to him on his cultivation path. It was because the Soraka flower had replaced the role of the spirit root that he was able to step into the path of cultivation. It was also because of the Soraka flower that he was able to be reborn in Jindan, at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. Daiyu was even worried that he would not be able to take the blow. Hence she purposely left him a message in the ancient temple at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. And the Divine Phoenix bone had saved his life countless times. In the end, he even used the bloodline of the Divine Phoenix bone to fuse with the bloodline of the dragons, evolving into the taboo of all races, the Dragon Phoenix. Daiyu even left the Nirvana divine power for last and passed it down to him. That was equivalent to giving him an additional life. What was a heaven-defying change of fate? That was it. With the help of the Nirvana divine power, Suzimo could be reborn in flames, and his combat strength would increase tremendously. There was a high chance that he could kill his enemies instead. Under normal circumstances, that was indeed the case. In the battle against the top emperors of the primordial 5 races, even if the Dragon Phoenix true body did not comprehend fleeting youth, it would be killed on the spot. The Dragon Phoenix true body had a chance to be reborn as well. At that time, it would kill the Underworld Witch Emperor and the others as well. Suzimo smiled bitterly. Daiyu had calculated everything. However, Daiyu was not omniscient and omnipotent. Even Daiyu would not have thought that Suzimo would not be facing an opponent from Tianhuang mainland today, but a strong enemy from the upper world. A strong enemy that Suzimo could not fight against. Above the firmaments. Suddenly, the Dragon Phoenix true body took a deep breath of air. The raging flames around him turned into streaks of fiery light that surged into his mouth and nose, fusing with his body and bloodline. The Dragon Phoenix true body had been reborn. Initially, this was something that should have been extremely exciting. However, be it the emperors of the human race, or the living beings of the 10,000 races, all of them had heavy hearts and dark expressions. Every corner of Tianhuang mainland was shrouded in sorrow, and the atmosphere was stifling. Anyone with a bit of foresight knew that even if the Dragon Phoenix true body was reborn, it would be useless, and he would only be killed mercilessly once more. It's good that you're alive. Elder Feng nodded with a smile. He did not waste any time with the Dragon Phoenix true body, and released his terrifying spirit consciousness, locking down the consciousness of the Dragon Phoenix true body completely. With that, the Dragon Phoenix essence spirit did not even have a chance to self-destruct. Closing in, Elder Feng reached out and grabbed the Dragon Phoenix true body. Before the palm descended, the void around the Dragon Phoenix true body had already collapsed. All of a sudden, the blood chi within the Dragon Phoenix true body seemed to have sensed a tremendous stimulation and circulated on its own, bursting forth with the sound of a tsunami. His blood chi rose rapidly and reached its limits. A rich blood chi spread and menacing demon beasts with massive bodies condensed rapidly around the Dragon Phoenix true body. Wild Ox Demon King, Stone Bear Demon King, Anaconda Demon King, Sanguine Ape Demon King, Divine Chariot Demon King, Hell Tiger Demon King, Wind Leopard Demon King, Desolate Ocean Dragon King, Sea Calming Turtle, Golden Winged Rock, Six-Tusked Divine Elephant, Immortal Divine Phoenix. The 12 Demon Kings of the Mystic Classic of the 12 Demon Kings of the Great Wilderness appeared. They were lifelike with frightening gazes and emitted extremely terrifying auras. It was the bloodline phenomenon of the Dragon Phoenix true body. The 12 Demon Kings protected the Dragon Phoenix true body in the middle. It was an extremely shocking scene. However, the emperors of the human race could not bear to watch inside. To everyone, this was merely the final struggle of the Dragon Phoenix true body. The Dragon Phoenix true body looked at the 12 Demon Kings around him in a daze with a lost expression. The bloodline phenomenon this time round was not his will. It circulated and appeared on its own. Humph! Elder Feng hollered softly. A trapped beast is still fighting. Shatter! Elder Feng merely exerted some strength in his palm, and the 12 demon kings were crushed, turning into scarlet demonic chi once more. Elder Feng's palm continued to tighten. The scarlet demonic chi was still surging and changing without dissipating. In the blink of an eye, all the demonic chi condensed into a butterfly in front of Su Zimo. The butterfly was less than 10 feet long and extended a pair of blood-colored wings with 2 bright moons imprinted on them. It was like a pair of cold eyes that were glaring at Elder Feng opposite. Elder Feng suddenly felt a little uncomfortable, as he felt inexplicably frustrated. It was a feeling that made him extremely displeased. Little beast, you're still not giving up? Elder Feng's gaze was ruthless as he sneered. Watch me cripple your phenomenon. Who are you calling a little beast? All of a sudden, an indifferent and cold voice resounded in midair. It was a woman's voice that was neither loud nor soft. Everyone else was confused as to who the voice belonged to. However, when Su Zimo heard that voice, his heart skipped a beat, and he looked at the blood-colored butterfly in disbelief. His body began to tremble uncontrollably. Although many years had passed, he was extremely familiar with that voice. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 1743. Who's speaking? It seems to be beside the taboo dragon phoenix. That butterfly? It's speaking in human language? The human emperors were shocked as they discussed softly. The dragon phoenix's true body looked at the blood-colored butterfly before him, and his breathing turned heavier unknowingly. He merely tried his best to keep his eyes open without blinking. He was afraid that this was just a hallucination. He was afraid that the butterfly would vanish the moment he blinked. Prior to this, the blood-colored butterfly had appeared many times. However, this time round, it was clear that the blood butterfly was different. It seems like the blood butterfly is speaking. A witch from the upper world frowned slightly. A bloodline phenomenon that possesses sentience? Elder Feng did not know why, but he felt increasingly frustrated and uneasy. Elder Feng's expression darkened as he said coldly, "Who cares what it is? Shatter." A dark green glint shone brightly in Elder Feng's eyes, and an extremely powerful force burst forth from his palm, crushing towards the blood-colored butterfly. This time round, Elder Feng did not hold back, and even enveloped the dragon phoenix's true body within. He did not want to search the soul anymore. He merely wanted to eliminate the uneasiness in his heart as soon as possible. The blood-colored butterfly seemed motionless. However, her pair of wings trembled slightly. The tremor was extremely small and difficult to discern with the naked eye. The speed was also shockingly fast, and in the eyes of others, it was as though it was motionless the entire time. However, after that slight tremor, a terrifying energy fluctuation burst forth from the void. The surrounding void collapsed instantly. Poof! Immediately after, blood spewed and splattered in all directions in the firmaments. Right in front of the living beings of the 10,000 races, Elder Feng's extended palm shattered into a blood mist. That was not all. That terrifying power was still spreading from Elder Feng's palm towards his arm. In the blink of an eye, half of Elder Feng's arm shattered into countless blood foams that scattered down. Ah! Elder Feng shrieked tragically and retracted his palm hurriedly. His reaction was extremely fast as well. He swiped his storage bag with his other hand and withdrew a white bone saber. Gritting his teeth, he slashed at his own arm. Elder Feng took advantage of the fact that the energy waves had not spread to his body to chop off the severed arm. Blood gushed out like a fountain. It was just a broken arm. To Elder Feng it was nothing. But this kind of pain was bone deep. Elder Feng took 2 steps back and circulated his primordial spirit. His severed arm rapidly grew back. However, his expression became extremely unsightly. He had originally thought that there was no one or power in the lower realm that could harm him. Who would have thought that he would suffer such a blow? The 6 sorcerers from the upper realm beside him had just reacted. No one would have thought that Elder Feng would slip up and get injured. There was an uproar all over Tianhuang mainland. What's going on? Long Ran clenched his fists and said in a deep voice, "Could it be that there's still a chance?" "It's possible." The old storyteller seemed to be deep in thought as he muttered, Araki Takashi was originally a mortal without a spirit root, but an expert defied the heavens and changed his fate, allowing him to step onto the path of cultivation. Even I can't compare to this expert. Long Ran asked in surprise. Are you talking about that blood-colored butterfly? Can that butterfly defend against the 7 sorcerers from the upper realm? Sigh, I don't know either. The old storyteller shook his head. Above the firmaments, the 7 sorcerers from the upper realm summoned their weapons one after another. Some of them were bone staffs while others were bone sabers and bone spears. Although they were of different shapes, every single weapon was surrounded by a powerful aura. The moment those weapons were summoned, the void around them could not withstand the pressure and began to collapse. The 7 sorcerers from the upper realm glared at the blood-colored butterfly coldly with hostile expressions. What are you? Elder Feng narrowed his eyes and asked coldly. The blood-colored butterfly did not reply, and the surrounding space blurred for a moment. Immediately after, right in front of everyone, the blood-colored butterfly transformed into a woman. She wore long blood-colored robes and had black hair that cascaded down like a waterfall. Her expression was indifferent, and she was extremely beautiful. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat when he looked at that familiar figure, and his eyes turned red. All the living beings of Tianhuang mainland raised their heads one after another and looked at the blood-robed woman. For some reason, the woman was extremely beautiful. However, after wearing the blood-colored robes, she gave off a unique aura that was unforgettable. More importantly, the coldness and arrogance in the blood-robed woman's eyes was as though she did not care about anyone at all. The moment the blood-robed woman appeared, the emperors of the human race, Long Ran and the others instinctively lowered their heads. It's her. At the borders of the North region, Monkey suddenly said, Brother Monkey, you know her? Linghu, Qing, and the others turned and asked curiously. We've met once, Monkey recalled with a look of reminiscence. However, that was many years ago. In Songlang Mountain Range, she suddenly looked for me and imparted a cultivation technique to me. Pausing for a moment, Monkey scratched his head and said in confusion, Even now, I don't understand why. That woman must be someone that you can't forget, right? Little Fox tilted her head slightly and pouted her pink lips, murmuring softly, It's that senior. Mo Ing of Divine Phoenix Island was excited when he saw the blood-robed woman. Back then, this blood-robed woman was the one who descended upon Divine Phoenix Island domineeringly and swept through everything, taking away the Divine Phoenix bone. From that day on, Mo Ing was subdued by her. The capital of Great Zhou, a woman in a pale yellow dress looked into the skies with a complicated gaze. She was bitter and disappointed as she murmured softly, So it's her? Above the firmaments, Su Zimo looked at the back view of the blood-robed woman with an emotional expression. Finally, he could not help but call out softly, And Miss Dai, is that you? Of course it's me. The blood-robed woman turned around and looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away with a smile. Su Zimo was stunned. That voice had sounded in his ears countless times. That was a face that haunted him to this day as well. Su Zimo had never expected that he would reunite with Dai Yu under such circumstances. There were countless things in Su Zimo's heart that he wanted to tell Dai Yu. He wanted to tell Dai Yu everything that had happened to him ever since they parted. However, when these thousands of words reached the tip of his tongue, they became somewhat incoherent and stuttered. Miss Dai, why are you? I've never thought that you would. Su Zimo had an uneasy expression. At this moment, he no longer had the domineering aura of Wu Huang and was like a shy young man. Dai Yu did not say anything and merely looked at Su Zimo with a smile. Miss Dai, thank you for the gifts you left for me. The first 2 gifts were of great help to me. However, I don't know about the 3rd gift. Su Zimo's mind was in a mess, and he did not know where to start. He just blurted out whatever came to mind. Right then, Dai Yu spoke and interrupted Su Zimo. The 3rd gift is me. Genius 1 second. Remember this site address. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 1744. When he heard that, Su Zimo felt a boom in his mind and his heart thumped wildly, as though it was about to jump out of his mouth. Su Zimo had never heard such touching words before. Furthermore, they came from Daiyu. However, was she referring to Daiyu's arrival to help him, or did she mean something else? Suzimo seemed to have thought of something as his face flushed red, and he was even more flustered. What are you thinking about? Daiyu looked at Suzimo with a fake smile, as though she could read his mind. Suzimo's face flushed even redder. And nothing. Suzimo replied hurriedly with an uneasy expression. For some reason, Suzimo felt that Daiyu seemed to be smiling more now that they met. Back when Daiyu imparted the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness to him in Pingyang town, she had a cold expression the entire time, and did not smile at all. Suzimo took a deep breath of air and probed. Miss Dai, what's the meaning of this third gift? Actually, even before I left, I did not expect that you would be able to cultivate to this extent. Daiyu's expression turned emotional as well. She was well aware of how difficult it was for a mortal with an ordinary bloodline, no sect, no resources, and no backing to rise up in the cruel world of cultivation. Although she left Suzimo with the Soraka flower, divine phoenix bone and mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness back then, Daiyu was still alive. However, she also knew that the chances of Suzimo growing were extremely slim. Although Suzimo had once said that he wanted to look for her, she merely smiled and did not take it seriously. Therefore, when Daiyu met Suzimo once more and saw that Suzimo had already cultivated to this extent, she was extremely happy, and the smile on her face naturally widened as well. Daiyu continued, the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. When all 12 demon kings are cultivated, and the blood butterfly is formed, I will sense it and my consciousness will descend upon this phenomenon. A look of realization flashed through Suzimo's eyes. Previously, when he cultivated his bloodline phenomenon, although he could form the blood butterfly phenomenon, it was slightly illusory. However, the blood butterfly that was formed after all 12 demon kings were cultivated, it was corporeal. In other words, he could only activate the true blood butterfly phenomenon after he cultivated the 12 demon kings. Then, right now, Suzimo looked to Daiyu and hesitated. After all, there were some things he could not say. Daiyu did not try to hide anything. She nodded and said, what you see now is of course not my real body. At best, it can only be considered as a doppelganger. Daiyu's, Daiyu to Daiyu, Daiyu. Daiyu's Daiyu was merely to her consciousness. Elder Feng, and the other sorcerer tribesmen from the upper world, did not dare to act rashly. To die to the Avyus, die. They had arrived with their true bodies. Furthermore, the woman before them was merely a bloodline phenomenon, and could not even be considered as a clone. Fufu, one of the female witches from the upper world, was already jealous of Daiyu's appearance and aura to begin with. Now that she knew of Daiyu's background, she could not help but scoff coldly. I was wondering what sort of a big shot it was. So, it's just a bloodline phenomenon. What's with the pretense? Daiyu's smile vanished gradually when she heard the words of the female witch. How dare a few mystic witches spout nonsense in front of me? Daiyu turned around and looked at Elder Feng and the others. She said indifferently and attacked without hesitation. Without channeling any dermic arts or divine powers, Daiyu merely extended her palm calmly. Sparkling like jade, it shone with a pure white luster, and slapped towards the female witch from the upper world. Die! The female witch and two other witches from the upper world beside her attacked at the same time, and released 3 lesser divine powers. Heaven Anchoring Incantation, Ultimate Incantation, Heaven Encirclement Incantation. Lesser divine powers as such were not divine powers, released by the experts of Tianhuang mainland. The lesser divine powers of the experts of the upper world seemed to have undergone some sort of metamorphosis, and could even suppress Suzimo's peerless divine powers with ease. The 3 lesser divine powers were released at the same time, as though they wanted to destroy the world. Poof, poof, poof. However, the moment the 3 lesser divine powers were released, they were crushed by Daiyu's palm, and turned into nothingness without causing any ripples. The 3 lesser divine powers could not even stop Daiyu in the slightest, let alone injure her. Daiyu's palm slapped down mercilessly, and the bodies of the 3 witches from the upper world exploded instantly, turning into a blood mist. The essence spirits of the 3 witches from the upper world did not manage to escape, and were killed by Daiyu's palm. Tianhuang mainland was shaken. The emperors of the human race, and the living beings of the 10,000 races, widened their eyes in disbelief. In their eyes, the powerhouses of the sorcerer tribe from the upper world, who were unstoppable and undefeatable like gods, were as weak as ants in front of the blood-robed woman's palm. A single slap killed 3 of them. Way too strong. Long Ran was secretly speechless and could not help but gulp. This is merely a bloodline phenomenon of hers. How strong is her true body in terms of combat strength? Su Zimo was not surprised at all. Demoness. Elder Feng's heart skipped a beat as he said in a deep voice. You had better not be ruthless. If you force me into a corner, I'll report this matter back to the witch world. If we know that there's a creation Qingli in here, the ones who descend won't be experts of the mystic witch level. Were you the one who called him a beast earlier on? Daiyu ignored Elder Feng's threat and shifted her gaze towards him. A divine glint flashed through Daiyu's eyes. The void around Elder Feng collapsed instantly. In the next moment, Elder Feng's physical body began to crumble into pieces and turned into a pool of blood. I'm going to destroy this mainland and let blood flow like rivers. Elder Feng's primordial spirit let out a final shrill cry. His essence spirit burned and used some sort of secret skill, turning into a streak of light that shot into the clouds and disappeared into the gigantic tear in the firmaments. You guys are finished. The remaining 3 upper world witches were pale as they looked at Daiyu, Su Zimo and the others and laughed maniacally. The experts of the witch world will definitely descend upon this place once they receive the news. At that time, all of you and all living beings on this mainland will have to accompany Elder Feng in death. The 3 upper world witches hollered with menacing expressions. Is that so? Daiyu's expression was indifferent, and she was unmoved as she said indifferently, You guys can accompany him in death first. Daiyu slapped down with her palm. Poof! The remaining 3 upper world witches turned into 3 clouds of blood mist, without any corpses, and their essence spirits were destroyed. Silence filled the entire world. The living beings of the 10,000 races were shocked. Just now, the 7 upper world witches were extremely strong and arrogant. However, the arrival of the blood-robed woman destroyed all 7 upper world witches with ease. None of them were spared. Everyone go to sleep now. End of chapter. Chapter 1745. After Daiyu killed 7 experts of the upper world, the 4 emperors of the witch race beside her were so scared that their faces turned pale, and they shivered. Senior Eye. One of the emperors of the witch race had a terrified expression and his voice trembled, as though he wanted to explain something. Daiyu did not even look at them. With her back facing the 4 of them, she waved her red sleeves gently. The voids collapsed and the world trembled. Boom! An extremely terrifying force crashed into the bodies of the 4 rulers of the shaman tribe. The bodies of the 4 rulers exploded on the spot and turned into a cloud of blood mist. Their essence spirits were destroyed on the spot as well. Although they had not met for many years, Daiyu's actions were still the same as before, decisive and arrogant. The 4 emperors of the witch race were killed without even having the chance to beg for mercy. It was useless for the emperors to beg for mercy. Daiyu could not be bothered to listen either. A single wave of her sleeves was akin to wiping away 4 specks of dust. The 4 emperors of the witch race were dead. Daiyu raised her head slightly and looked at the glowing crack in the firmaments, murmuring softly, It's no wonder why the mystic witches were able to descend here unscathed. Su Zimo explained, 1,000 years ago, during the great calamity of the human race, someone used a secret skill to summon the senior human emperor, who ascended from Tianhuang mainland. When the senior human emperor heard the news, he broke through the world of Tianhuang mainland and descended forcefully despite being severely injured to help the human race tide through that calamity. Before the senior human emperor left, he told me that his descent caused the heaven and earth of Tianhuang mainland to be incomplete, and that there might be other changes in the future. Oh, there was a hint of surprise in Daiyu's tone. However, her expression was calm. To be able to break through this heaven and earth, and endure the heaven and earth laws of the lower world without dying, the human emperor is rather capable. Su Zimo was secretly speechless. The senior human emperor was extremely strong and suppressed the 10,000 races. He was invincible in the lower world and had ascended to the upper world for eons. Yet, Daiyu merely said that he was rather capable. Su Zimo smiled. Back then, I even asked the senior human emperor about the great wilderness in you. What did you find out? Daiyu's eyes flickered and rippled like water as she asked with a smile. Su Zimo shook his head and said, It's nothing much. I just know that there are 3,000 worlds in the upper realm, and the Great Wasteland domain is one of them. After all, Senior Ren Huang is not from the Great Wilderness. He only mentioned some things about the Great Wilderness, but he has never heard of you. With his cultivation, he has heard of De Huang but not me? Daiyu raised her brows and asked, What did you ask back then? Su Zimo was slightly taken aback as he said, I'm just asking Senior Human Emperor if he's heard of Daiyu. Why? Is there something wrong? Daiyu. Daiyu seemed to have thought of something as she sighed and said softly, In the upper realm, there are less than 5 people who know the name Daiyu. Ah. A look of realization flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. Daiyu must have had a Taoist name in the upper realm, and in the wilderness. Naturally, the human emperor had not heard of Daiyu when he asked him about it. It was similar to how in Tianhuang mainland, although the name Araki Takashi was known to the world, not many people knew that Araki Takashi's name was Su Zimo. Only those closest to him knew about it. There were less than 5 people who knew of the name Daiyu as well. He was one of them. At that thought, Su Zimo felt a sense of warmth and pride in his heart. Daiyu said, If you have the chance to meet him again, you can ask him about Shui Dai of the Great Wilderness. Su Zimo smiled. That'll have to wait for me to ascend to the upper realm. If you want to ascend to the upper realm, you can do it with your current cultivation. Daiyu looked at Su Zimo and nodded slightly with a hint of admiration. It's truly beyond my expectations that you can cultivate to this point. It's all thanks to the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness, the Soraka flower and the divine phoenix bone. Su Zimo said, If not for Miss Dai's arrangements, I would have died a long time ago. Daiyu said, Although I left you 3 gifts back then, it's up to your own efforts and fortune to see how far you can go. In other words, if you didn't cultivate to this point and condense the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness, you won't be able to see me and I won't bother about you. That sounded like Daiyu's style and sounded cold and heartless. Daiyu continued, Something unexpected happened to you. The divine phoenix bone that I left for you fused with the dragon blood and evolved into a dragon phoenix. When he heard Daiyu's words, Su Zimo felt as though he had returned to the past in the courtyard of Pingyang town, and the days when Daiyu brought him to the path of cultivation. Su Zimo felt a sense of pride, and could not help but laugh. Miss Dai, my achievements aren't limited to this. There's also Qinglian's clone, right? I've already seen it. Daiyu's expression was calm, as usual, as she looked in the direction of Kunlun ruins. Qinglian's true body was there, and she did not reveal any bloodline aura. However, she could not hide from Daiyu's perception. That's not all. Su Zimo's eyes were clear and shone brightly. Oh, Daiyu pondered for a moment and shook her head. I don't know about that. I can only wait for you to tell me. Su Zimo's heart jolted. To think that Daiyu could not sense the existence of Wu Dao's true body, despite her strength. Wu Dao's true body was indeed an anomaly. Su Zimo opened his mouth and wanted to say that Wu Dao's true body was the real body. However, on second thought he did not say it. Su Zimo did not want to hide anything from Daiyu. That was because even now, he could not find the location of Wu Dao's true body. Furthermore, in the depths of his heart, he was secretly looking forward to the day when Wu Dao's true body could meet Daiyu personally. To be precise, Wu Dao's true body was Su Zimo. Right now, the Dragon Phoenix true body and Qinglian's true body were not the true him. Right now, Daiyu was not the true Daiyu either. The moment Wu Dao's true body met Daiyu, it would be their true reunion. When Daiyu saw that Su Zimo wanted to say something but hesitated, she did not probe further and merely smiled. Ignoring the gazes of the living beings of the 10,000 races, she pulled Su Zimo's wrist naturally and said, "Let's go." Right in front of everyone, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as Dayu tugged at his wrist. Blushing, he asked instinctively, "Where are we going?" Dayu's gaze landed on the ancestral ground of the witch race with a cold expression. "The witch race summoned their clansmen from the upper realm to bully you. If I hadn't descended, you would have been dead. I can't let this matter go so easily. I have to stand up for you." Most of Su Zimo's attention was on Dayu's palm. He felt that her palm was indescribably soft and delicate. In fact, he even had the urge to take the initiative to hold Dayu's hand. Su Zimo smiled. "Actually, speaking of this matter, the emperor of the human race was the one who descended from the upper realm and bullied them first." "Oh." Dayu's expression was calm as she said indifferently, "You can bully others, but others can't bully you." Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1746. If someone else were to say this, it would naturally be unreasonable. However, no one dared to question it when it came from Dayu. Furthermore, it seemed logical and justified. In the blink of an eye, Dayu had already brought Su Zimo to the ancestral ground of the witch race. At that moment, there were more than 100,000 witches gathered in the valley of the ancestral ground, looking up at Dayu and Su Zimo in the skies. Some of the witches were so scared that they trembled and knelt on the ground, begging pitifully. However, some of them stood with their heads held high and shouted fearlessly, "Demonis, don't be arrogant. Just now, the experts of the witch race in the upper world have received the news. Before long, they'll descend and kill you. Demonis, I advise you to leave quickly." Dayu's expression was calm when she heard the shouts and curses below. There was no emotion in her eyes. Su Zimo glanced sideways. He could tell that Dayu truly did not care. Who would care if an ant was waving its arms beneath their feet and flaunting its might? Dayu did not put on any airs and merely extended her palm slowly, pressing down. Her movements were extremely slow, but when this lustrous white palm descended, the sky suddenly darkened. Some of the witches who were cursing in the valley suddenly shut their mouths and widened their eyes, feeling as though a huge shadow had shrouded them. Endless despair filled the eyes of many of the witches. Many sorcerer tribesmen tried their best to escape from the valley. However, no matter how they tried to escape, they could not escape from that gigantic shadow. It was as though the heavens had collapsed. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to hide. Under the shadow, no living being could survive. Just now, the witches who were still cursing had already broken down mentally as they knelt on the ground, crying and begging for mercy. Some of the patriarchs of the witch race summoned their dharma treasures and released divine powers one after another, striking the shadow in the skies. However, those dharma treasures and divine powers did not cause any ripples when they entered the shadow. All dharma treasures and divine powers were reduced to ashes with a gentle touch from Dayu's palm. Dayu's palm descended slowly. There was clearly an endless void between her and the valley beneath her. However, it was as though the end of the world had arrived in the valley as cries, roars, screams, pleas and tragic cries intertwined. Dayu's palm pressed down. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The entire Tianhuang mainland, however, seemed to quiver. All the voices from before had vanished in the blink of an eye. After that loud bang, Tianhuang mainland fell into a long period of silence. Everything was silent. Emperors of the human race and experts, of course. Dayu, Dayu, die, Dayu, die. Dayu, die, 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 die. What replaced it was a huge 5-fingered palm print that was deeply indented. It was extremely shocking. Within the 5-fingered palm, the color of blood filled the air, and all life was extinguished. Die, die, dies, die, die of die, die of die. Back then, he was almost killed by the cultivators of Joyful Clan. Before Dayu left, she had annihilated the entire Joyful Clan. That was Dayu's method. The witch race did not have any good intentions when they summoned the experts of the upper world. If Dayu had not descended this time round, and the experts of the upper world slaughtered wantonly, there would be even more living beings and races that would be wiped out in Tianhuang mainland. The sorcerer tribe had only themselves to blame for ending up like this. Su Zimo was already mentally prepared. But everyone else was scared out of their wits, and their hearts were trembling. Even the emperors of the human race, Long Ran and the others were pale. "He's way too domineering." Long Ran gulped and murmured. "He's only helping Zimo vent his anger, and yet he destroyed the witch race so casually. If this expert is enraged, what kind of scene would it be?" A Kuan ruler beside him took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Fortunately, they're not our enemies." The old storyteller's eyes were still filled with worry as he said softly, "If what Elder Feng said is true and more experts of the upper world will descend, I'm afraid this senior won't be able to defend against them single-handedly. After all, it's difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. Furthermore, the upper world is vast, and there's always someone stronger." The other emperors frowned slightly at the mention of that. To be precise, the crisis of Tianhuang mainland was not over yet. Above the firmaments, after killing the witch race, Dai retracted her palm with a calm expression, as though she had done something extremely ordinary. Dai glanced sideways and saw that Su Zimo wanted to say something but hesitated. "What questions do you have? Ask away." "Miss Dai, will we be able to meet again after I ascend to the upper world?" "Not necessarily," Dai replied. "There are 3,000 worlds in the upper world, and every single world is countless times larger than Tianhuang mainland. Not to mention the 3,000 worlds. Even in the vast wilderness, with my cultivation base, there are many unknown places that I haven't explored. Normally speaking, there are a few possibilities for your dragon phoenix body to ascend. Ascending to the dragon realm, ascending to the Wudong realm, and ascending to the vast wilderness. These 3 possibilities are the most likely. Of course, there's also a very small possibility that you'll ascend to another realm." Dai said, "If you can ascend to the vast wilderness, there's a high chance that you'll see me." Su Zimo nodded as if he understood something. The dragon phoenix's true body had the bloodline of dragons. Therefore, it was possible for it to ascend to the dragon realm. The Wutong realm that Dai mentioned should be the realm where the divine phoenixes and divine phoenixes resided. In the ancient books, there were some legends and records that the divine phoenixes and divine phoenixes would not perch unless it was a Wutong realm. The dragon phoenix also had the bloodline of the divine phoenix, so it could also ascend to the Wutong realm. Dragon phoenixes were also considered a type of demon, so it could also ascend to the vast wilderness. Dai Yu's gaze turned and landed on Qinglian's true body in the Kunlun ruins. "As for your Qinglian body, it's possible for it to ascend to the heavenly realm." "Heavenly realm?" Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Dai nodded. "You're right. There's a high chance that the humans of the hundreds of millions of minor thousand aristocratic families will ascend to the heavenly realm. The human emperor that you mentioned just now should be someone from the heavenly realm." Su Zimo nodded. Dai said, "Of course, Qinglian is unique in the world. It's possible for her to ascend to any realm." After hearing Dai Yu's words, Su Zimo gained a deeper understanding of the upper realm. The upper realm included the Trichiliocosm, the heavenly realm, the vast wilderness, the dragon realm, the Wutong realm, the witch realm and the god realm. They were all part of the Trichiliocosm. Dai Yu's expression turned solemn for once. "You have to remember that the upper realm is not as beautiful as ordinary people imagine. On the contrary, the cruelty of the upper realm is 100 times, or even 1,000 times worse than the minor thousand worlds. Given my cultivation, I can't roam more than 50% of the places in the entire upper realm." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Book guest residence reading website. Chapter 1747. In Su Zimo's heart, Dai Yu was an almost invincible existence. But now, Dai Yu said it herself that given her cultivation, she could not dominate more than 50% of the upper realm. Even before ascending, the vastness and mystery of the upper realm had already given Su Zimo a huge shock. Dai Yu said, "Right now, you're invincible in this mainland without any opponents. However, if you were to ascend to the upper realm, you'll be at the bottom of the hierarchy." Su Zimo nodded. "Senior human emperor once told me that there are countless paragons in the upper realm. Those who can ascend are all top-notch experts in the lower realm. It's not just those who ascended from the lower realm, Daiyu said. In the upper realm, there are many paragons who were born there. Their starting point is higher than the living beings of the lower realm the moment they were born. Suddenly, Su Zimo thought of something and asked, "Just now, what are the cultivation realms of the 7 witches who descended from the upper realm?" "They're just a few mystic witches." Daiyu shook her head slightly. Mystic witches are considered the lowest living beings in the witch world of the upper realm. However, even the lowest living beings of the upper realm can suppress me with ease. Su Zimo smiled bitterly and shook his head. The supreme divine powers that I've comprehended can't even defend against the lesser divine powers of mystic witches. Daiyu pondered for a moment and said, "There's no harm in telling you some things now. In the upper realm, you'll have to experience the 3 major realms first." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he listened intently. He did not want to miss out on any information about the upper realm. After all, the more he knew, the more likely he would be able to gain a foothold after ascending to the upper realm. Furthermore, he had cultivated to his current realm and knew nothing about his future path. Daiyu said, "The 3 major realms are Mystic Aeon, Earthly Aeon and Heavenly Aeon. Mystic Aeon witches are usually called Mystic Witches. Mystic Aeon immortal cultivators are called Mystic Immortals and so on. Of course, the civilizations of the 3,000 sectors are different. The names may be different, but the corresponding levels will not change." Su Zimo nodded and asked, "Why are these 3 stages called Mystic, Earth and Heaven? Is there anything special about them?" Daiyu did not answer, but asked instead, "Xian Di Tian, according to this order, do you think of anything?" "Xian Di Tian?" Su Zimo thought for a while, and his eyes lit up. He blurted out, "Heaven, Earth, Black and Yellow?" "Not bad." Daiyu nodded. "I got it." Su Zimo said, "Heaven, Earth, Xian and Huang. In fact, this Huang corresponds to the emperor of the millions of families." Daiyu nodded slightly as a look of admiration flashed across her eyes. As for the Yuan in Mystic, Earth and Heaven Primordial, it represents the source of power in the upper realm. Heaven and Earth Primordial Qi. Heaven and Earth Primordial Qi is similar to the spirit Qi in a small world. However, it is countless times stronger than spirit Qi. Just now, you said that a minor divine power of the mystic sorcerer was able to defeat your supreme divine power, because his minor divine power was infused with Heaven and Earth Primordial Qi. No wonder. Su Zimo was enlightened and lamented. To think that infusing Heaven and Earth Primordial Qi would cause a divine power to transform to such an extent. Daiyu said, "The so-called divine power was originally passed down from the upper realm. The true power of the divine power can only be unleashed when it is infused with Heaven and Earth Primordial Qi." After pondering for a while, Su Zimo asked again, "Does that mean that if I can control Heaven and Earth Primordial Qi, I can release divine powers at will?" "Of course not." Daiyu shook her head. Typically, mystic primordial cultivators can only release minor divine powers. Earth primordial cultivators can only release major divine powers. Only heavenly primordial cultivators can release supreme divine powers. Firstly, the amount of Heaven and Earth Primordial Qi required to release major or supreme divine powers is massive. If one's cultivation realm isn't high enough, they won't be able to activate it at all. Secondly, if one's cultivation realm isn't high enough, their physical body and essence spirit won't be able to withstand the burden of releasing major or supreme divine powers. Su Zimo memorized all of that in his mind and tried his best to absorb and understand it. Daiyu said, "You have to set your sights wider and look further into the future. In the upper realm, not only will there be divine powers, there will also be countless treasures and secret skills, many of which I've never seen before. Not only will there be supreme divine powers in the upper realm, there are also a few taboo secret manuals. If you can obtain one of them, it'll be enough for you to use for the rest of your life." Supreme divine powers. The first time he heard those words was from the old storyteller. However, the old storyteller had also said that it was merely a legend, and he had never seen it before. Now he knew from Daiyu that supreme divine powers did exist. Furthermore, they were in the upper realm. However, even a divine origin powerhouse could only release supreme divine powers. What kind of power would one have to possess to release supreme divine powers? Daiyu seemed to have read Su Zimo's mind and said, after the divine origin realm, there are naturally higher realms. However, that's too far away from you. Just the mystic earth and divine origin realms alone have 9 grades each. There's a huge gap between each grade. The gap between the 3 primordial realms is even greater. Su Zimo asked, Miss Dai, is your cultivation realm above the divine origin realm? Of course. Daiyu nodded and said, the human emperor you're talking about is also above the divine origin realm. Su Zimo sighed in his heart. He had thought that after ascending to the upper realm, he would be able to catch up to Daiyu's footsteps very quickly. He had not expected that there would be such a huge gap between him and Daiyu. Daiyu had used a secret technique to isolate their conversation. No one else could hear it either. Daiyu's gaze landed on Qinglian's real body. After a while she said, it's rare that you've grown to the peak of rank 8. Yes, it's a pity that you've yet to break through and reach rank 9. Su Zimo said. Qinglian's real body had been at the peak of rank 8 for some time now. Even though Qinglian's real body had comprehended 3 supreme divine powers, she had yet to break through the boundary of rank 8. She seemed to have reached a bottleneck. Creation Qinglian is the only one in heaven and earth. I don't know how she's going to grow. Daiyu said, however, rank 9 creation Qinglian is definitely not the limit. The true peak is rank 12. Moreover, the next 4 ranks of Qinglian's creation will give birth to even greater creations. The potential of this clone is definitely not weaker than your dragon phoenix body. Perhaps it might even surpass the dragon phoenix. Daiyu had a very high opinion of Qinglian's real body. Su Zimo had countless words that he wanted to say to Daiyu. However, right then, Daiyu suddenly raised her head and looked at the crack in the firmaments, saying softly, it's here. The moment she said that, an oppressive aura surged into Tianhuang mainland through the crack. Splash! A green river hovered above the firmaments, emitting a rich evil aura. Every single drop of water in the river contained an extremely terrifying power that could kill any emperor in Tianhuang mainland. Genius 1 second. Remember this site address. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 1748. The green river spanned above the firmaments and 4 figures could be vaguely seen in the river, exuding a powerful aura that dominated the world. Su Zimo raised his head and looked over. Given his cultivation realm, it was only natural that he could not detect the cultivation realms of those figures. However, he could sense that those 4 figures were clearly much stronger than the 7 upper world witches from before. I'd like to see who dares to hurt someone from the witch world in this tiny place of the lower world. A voice rumbled from the green river, bringing with it an immense might that was sinister and terrifying. The 4 experts from the witch world merely appeared faintly in the green river, without revealing themselves. However, their spirit consciousnesses were patrolling the entire Tianhuang mainland without restraint. Damn it! The witches here have been annihilated. Before long, the 4 experts from the witch world discovered the gigantic blood-colored palm print in the ancestral ground of the witches. A few ghostly green gazes shot out from the green river above the firmaments towards Daiyu and Su Zimo, who were standing on the blood-colored palm print. The light from their gazes arrived almost instantly. Daiyu moved gracefully and shielded Su Zimo behind her. Her expression was indifferent, and she did not move at all. Before the few rays of green light landed on Daiyu's body, they had already dissipated into nothingness. Oh! A surprised voice sounded from the green river. Woman, you've got some tricks up your sleeves. Another voice sounded and asked coldly, who are you? Where are you from in the upper world? Daiyu raised her head slightly and replied indifferently, you're just a few earth witches. You're not worthy of knowing my background. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. According to what Daiyu had said just now, earth witches should be experts of earth essence realm. They were indeed a major cultivation realm higher than the 7 upper world witches from before. How dare you? An earth witch hollered. Stop trying to act mysterious over there. No matter how strong you are, what you've manifested in the lower world is merely a phenomenon. The earth which was indeed sharp to be able to see through Dai Yu's facade with a single glance. Dai Yu said, "Just one phenomenon is enough to deal with you." As soon as she finished speaking, Dai Yu directly attacked. Her white palm seemed to pass through the endless void, and came to the green river at the end of the firmament. She gently patted it. "You're courting death." When the four earth wizards saw this, they activated their primordial spirits one after another. The green river stirred up a huge wave and swallowed Dai Yu's palm. This green river was condensed from the elemental energy in their bodies. It contained an extremely strong corrosive power, and was also mixed with an evil curse. Not to mention a body of flesh and blood, even a divine weapon from the upper realm would not be able to withstand the power of the green river. Acting all mysterious, "Get down here," Dai Yu scolded. Dai Yu's palm emitted rays of godly light as it landed directly on the green river. The green river's water was sinister and viscous, but not a single drop touched Dai Yu's palm. Boom! A loud sound rang out. The green river that spanned across the sky seemed to be frozen in an instant. Following a loud explosion, it was shattered into pieces by Dai Yu's palm. The green river turned into dark green rain and fell from the skies, almost engulfing the entire Tianhuang mainland. In the skies above Penglai Island, an emperor of the Golden Crow race was initially in his true form and stood above the clouds. He did not expect the dark green rain to fall from the skies. A drop of rain landed on his body. It was only a single drop. Poof! This drop of rainwater had corroded a bloody hole in his body. Immediately after, the terrifying power contained in the drop of rain devoured his Golden Crow body in the blink of an eye. The moment the essence spirit of the Golden Crow race's emperor escaped, it was penetrated by another drop of rain and died on the spot. When they saw that, the expressions of the yellow crows, Long Ran and the others changed starkly. The green river was shattered by Dai Yu, and its power was mostly dissipated. However, the remnant power was still so terrifying in the form of rain. Even an emperor could not defend against it. None of the living beings in Tianhuang mainland could survive this torrential rain. With a calm expression, Dai Yu rubbed her jade-like fingers gently, and a small flame appeared on her fingertips. The flame danced on Dai Yu's fingertips and flickered, as though a gust of wind could extinguish it. However, after the flame appeared, the dark green rain was incinerated before it could land on Tianhuang mainland, turning into the richest spirit qi that fused into Tianhuang mainland. As for the four earth magi, they were forced to reveal themselves by Dai Yu's palm strike, and looked wretched. "Kill!" The four earth magi hollered and attacked one after another. One of the earth wizards slapped his storage bag, and a dark green skull as large as a mountain appeared from within. The skull opened its mouth as though it wanted to devour the entire world. Thick dark green yuan qi constantly gushed out from the skull's eye sockets and mouth. Its aura was monstrous and blotted out the sun. 9 Neonate Curse. Another earth magi channeled his essence spirit and released a great divine power. Even the living beings of Tianhuang mainland had not seen the 9 Neonate Curse before. The 9 Neonate Curse was extremely vicious. In order to cultivate this great divine power, one had to use a secret skill to refine a living infant. For a total of 49 days, one had to refine the infant continuously with a secret skill and maintain its vitality to ensure that it did not die. Eventually, the infant would die in agony. The infant's soul would be filled with endless resentment and would be imprisoned by the witch race to cultivate this great divine power. Suddenly, 9 vengeful infants appeared in midair after the great divine ability was formed. They had tragic expressions and wailed. The 9 vengeful infants split into different directions and lunged towards Dai Yu. The third earth magi waved his bone staff and drew a semicircle before him. In the semicircle, many crooked incantations appeared and enveloped Dai Yu like dark green spirit snakes. The fourth earth magi's bone staff tapped on the ground. Immediately after, dark green flowers appeared beneath Dai Yu's feet and grabbed towards Dai Yu's ankle like the palm of an evil spirit. The 4 earth magi attacked at the same time without holding back. Although many experts of Tianhuang mainland had stayed out of the matter, Tianhuang mainland was not involved. However, they could still sense the terrifying power released by the earth magi experts. be it the skull or the secret skill. Every single one of them was enough to sweep through Tianhuang mainland and kill all living beings. Daiyu's expression was unchanged and her eyes were calm. Suddenly, Daiyu raised her leg and stomped gently. Boom! The rift under her feet shattered into pieces like an ancient mirror. Dense cracks began to appear on it. The moment the dark green flowers appeared, they were crushed by Daiyu's stomp. How dare you descend to the lower world with such puny means? Before Daiyu finished her sentence, the ground beneath the feet of the earth magi, who released the dark green flowers, split open, and a gigantic spike shot out. Exclamation point! The spike pierced through the body of the earth magi. The earth magi died on the spot. Book Abode Reading Website. Chapter 1749. After that, Daiyu waved her wide sleeves and struck the descending incantations of the witch tribe. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The incantations dispersed. Daiyu's sleeves were as red as blood. After dispersing the incantations, they did not weaken and crashed heavily onto the body of the earth wizard. Bang! The body of the earth wizard was torn into pieces by the seemingly weak robe sleeve. His essence spirit was destroyed and his body and Tao dissipated. Daiyu's gaze shifted as she looked at the gigantic skull in the skies. She did not reach out, and merely opened her mouth slightly, exhaling a breath of white air. Chi! The breath of white air was like a long sword that released an extremely sharp glint. It went against the heavens and pierced into the gigantic skull, forming a sword with breath. Suzumo's heart skipped a beat. A technique like that was nothing in the cultivation world, and was very common. Anyone with strong lungs and a terrifying aura could do that. However, to be able to form this long sword in one breath, to be able to defy the heavens and soar into the heavens, to fight against the weapon of an earth wizard from the upper realm, this kind of method was completely beyond Suzumo's understanding. Kaboom! The gigantic skull began to crumble and countless bone fragments fell from the skies. This earth wizard's weapon had been sliced into pieces by Daiyu's sword formed from her breath. All of a sudden, the earth wizard standing behind the skull tilted his head, and his eyes dimmed as he fell from the skies. There were no longer any signs of life in his body. He was dead. Daiyu's breath that formed a sword not only destroyed his weapon, but also killed him on the spot. In the blink of an eye, only one of the 4 earth wizards was left. Daiyu stood in front of Suzumo. The divine abilities and secret skills released by the 4 earth wizards did not hit Suzumo at all. The living beings of the 10,000 races raised their heads and stared at the scene with their mouths agape. They were shocked. Although the powerhouse in the blood-red robe was a woman, she was extremely powerful and looked down on the world. She suppressed all the powerhouses of the upper realm with an almost invincible stance. Even the various emperors of Tianhuang mainland were completely convinced, let alone the other living beings. This blood-robed woman was like an emperor, looking down on the world and looking down on everything. Domineering, powerful, invincible. Long Ran grinned and said, even though I met her once at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley back then, I never expected her to be so terrifying. The old storyteller's hands were also trembling slightly. He took out an ancient book from his storage bag, as if he was trying to record something in it. However, after a long while, he still couldn't write a single word. Instead, he let out a long sigh. The ancient human emperor can also be recorded and described with words. However, I'm afraid that no words can describe even a fraction of the senior's elegance. The old storyteller was once the storyteller of Enigma Palace. He would record every major event in Tianhuang mainland. However, at that moment, the old storyteller was unable to write a single word. In the sky, the 9 vengeful babies' expressions were mournful as they let out ear-piercing cries. With glaring green eyes, they pounced in front of Daiyu. Daiyu did not move at all, and had no intention of attacking. She merely stood there with a calm expression. When the 9 vengeful babies arrived in front of Daiyu, the menacing looks on their faces vanished and turned into fear, as though they were frightened by something. Naturally, there was no way the 9 vengeful babies could recognize Daiyu. However, they were the most sensitive and could sense an extremely terrifying aura from Daiyu. There was no longer any hatred in the eyes of the 9 vengeful babies. Instead, there was a hint of pleading in their eyes. The 9 babies hugged each other and bowed towards Dayu repeatedly. Although they looked clumsy, they were extremely pitiful. Although they were condensed from the power of divine powers, they could sense that the blood-robed woman before them could grant them true freedom. Disperse, Dayu said softly. The colors of the 9 babies began to change, turning from a dark green to a healthy shade of pink. A look of relief flashed through the eyes of the 9 babies. Before long, the 9 babies dissipated into nothingness in the world. In fact, Dayu did not even attack. She merely said 3 words and dispelled the great divine power. Not only that, Dayu even severed the source of power of the great divine power this time round. The Earth Wizard would never be able to condense this divine power again. The Earth Wizard's face was ashen and filled with fear. He also realized that the blood-robed woman before him was not someone he could fight against. In a flash, he turned and fled towards the crack in the heavens. Cultivating such a vicious divine power will result in karma. Today will be your calamity of death, Dayu said and extended her hand, gripping gently across the void. Exclamation point. Before the Earth Wizard could escape into the crack, he turned into a mist of blood and died on the spot. The 4 experts of the witch world who came down were all dead. Dayu waved her hand and collected the storage bags of the 7 mystic witches and the 4 Earth Wizards from before. Dayu exerted some strength in her palm, and the storage bags shattered, revealing the items within. Without even looking at them, Dayu handed them to Su Zimo and said, "Keep these items." Under normal circumstances, even though the witches of the upper realm had fallen, their spirit consciousness imprints would still be left on their storage bags. Given Su Zimo's strength, there was no way he could open them. Dayu did not erase any spirit consciousness imprints, and simply shattered the storage bags. "What are these?" Su Zimo took them over with a confused look in his eyes. There were many items in the storage bags of the upper realm witches. There were elixirs, weapons and all sorts of materials. However, Su Zimo did not recognize most of these items. In fact, he had never seen many of the materials before. Dayu scanned them casually and said, "These witches are extremely poor and don't have anything good. Most of these items belong to the witches, and won't be of much use to you. Take care of those bottles of elixirs." Dayu pointed to a few bottles and said, "These are essence condensation elixirs. In the upper realm, mystic essence cultivators take the most commonly. Not only does the essence condensation elixir nurture heaven and earth yuan qi, it can also help cultivators absorb heaven and earth yuan qi better after consumption." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he asked, "If I were to consume the essence condensation elixir to cultivate now, would I be able to control heaven and earth yuan qi?" "Of course not." Dayu shook her head. "You haven't transcended the tribulation yet. You can only attempt to absorb heaven and earth yuan qi after transcending the heavenly tribulation with your flesh and essence spirit. Even though you have the body of a dragon and phoenix now, if you consume the essence condensation elixir, you won't be able to withstand the power of the elixir and will explode on the spot." Su Zimo was secretly speechless. In the upper realm, even the most ordinary elixir possessed such terrifying power. Reading website, M. Chapter 1750. Taking another look, Dayu pointed to the 7 stones that were the size of a baby's fist. "Those are essence spirit stones. They contain rich heaven and earth essence qi, and are extremely important cultivation resources. Their value is far above those essence formation elixirs. Given my current cultivation, I can't absorb the heaven and earth essence qi within, right?" Su Zimo asked. Dayu shook her head gently. "Even if you transcend the tribulation and become a mystic essence cultivator, you won't be able to absorb the heaven and earth essence qi within, let alone your current cultivation realm. This elemental spirit stone can only be absorbed by earthly yuan cultivators. If mystic essence cultivators want to absorb the heaven and earth essence qi within, they have to cultivate a few forbidden secret manuals of the upper world." "Forbidden secret manuals?" Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He had heard Dayu mention that term earlier on, and a hint of curiosity flashed through his eyes. Forbidden secret manuals are on par with a few supreme divine powers. Those are too far away for you and there's no point in telling you. Daiyu did not continue. Su Zimo nodded and did not probe further. He merely kept the bottles of essence formation elixirs and the 7 essence spirit stones in a storage bag carefully. Daiyu was about to speak when she suddenly frowned and looked up. Boom! There was a deafening sound. Suddenly, a gigantic foot descended from the crack in the firmaments. Its thick thigh resembled a divine pillar that connected the heavens. The gigantic foot carried with it an apocalyptic aura and formed a massive shadow that descended from the skies, stomping heavily on East Sea. Instantly, a series of tsunamis surged in East Sea and swept in all directions. Instantly, countless living beings in East Sea were trampled to death by that single stomp. The living beings of the 10,000 races were shocked. Gigantic waves surged in the bottomless East Sea. However, the gigantic waves that were dozens of feet tall could not even reach the ankles of that living being. The experts of Tianhuang mainland were pale as they raised their heads one after another and looked over. The experts of Tianhuang mainland could not see the full appearance of that living being even at the limits of their vision. To be precise, that living being's thigh had already pierced through the entire heaven and earth of Tianhuang mainland. You're still not done? Daiyu's expression turned cold as she waved her sleeves and flung it towards that thigh that pierced through heaven and earth. Her scarlet sleeves seemed to have transformed into a blood-colored saber that sliced through the thigh. Puff! Daiyu's sleeves had sliced this heavenly thigh into two. Blood gushed out and dyed the East Sea red. The lower half of his thigh fell heavily into the East Sea, creating waves of blood. Roar! A pained and furious roar came from the sky. Boom! Immediately after, a huge palm descended from the sky, covering the sky and grabbing towards Daiyu. It was as if the giant hand had loomed over the entire middle continent. All the living beings of the myriad races were horrified. They had never seen such a huge creature before. A palm blotted out the sky and enveloped the central continent. 1 foot was enough to flatten the East Sea. Most importantly, up until now, the beings of the myriad races had yet to see the full appearance of this living being. They had no idea what kind of living being this was. Daiyu's expression did not change. Looking at the hand that was grabbing towards her, she retaliated with a punch. Daiyu's fist was like a speck of dust compared to this enormous hand. However, this punch directly shattered the palm into pieces. Roar! Roar! The roars in the firmaments turned more hurried. The consecutive severe injuries had already caused this living being to fall into a berserk rage. All of a sudden, the skies darkened. A huge shadow descended slowly, and a gigantic eyeball appeared in the middle of the shadow. It was ferocious and filled with endless rage and killing intent. All the living beings of the myriad races had never seen such a gigantic eye. That eye was comparable to the stars in the firmaments and emanated a powerful might. An image flashed through the minds of all the living beings of the myriad races. A living being that resembled a gigantic god stepped into Tianhuang mainland with 1 foot and reached in with 1 hand. After being severely injured, he lowered his body, wanting to see what was going on. That shadow was the face of that living being. On the face of that living being, there was no nose, ears, or mouth. There was only a single gigantic eye. Humph! Daiyu harumphed softly and raised her hand to point gently at the single eye in the firmaments. That jade-like finger tore through the air like a sharp sword and entered the single eye. Exclamation point! The single eye was blinded by Daiyu's finger. Ah! The living being howled tragically and let out a tragic roar. His voice grew further and further. It was clear that he had already escaped from Tianhuang mainland. All of a sudden, a gigantic ancient bell descended from the firmaments. The surface of the ancient bell was filled with runes. It was ancient and mysterious, and exuded a powerful aura with a terrifying might. Even the single-eyed living being earlier on could not compare to the aura of the ancient bell. Daiyu waved her sleeves and slapped the ancient bell viciously. Clang! When Daiyu's sleeves hit the ancient bell, a loud chime echoed from afar. Cracks appeared in the sky of infinite desolation because of the sound of the bell. They were densely packed. The ancient bell did not retreat. Instead, it enveloped Daiyu's head, as though it wanted to fight with her. Yu's eyes shone brightly as she reached out and slapped the ancient bell. Dong! The ancient bell shuddered and let out a sound. Immediately after, the runes on the ancient bell shone with a bedazzling divine light and enveloped Yu's palm. By the looks of it, the ancient bell wanted to fight against Yu. Poof! 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 The moment the runes collided with Yu's palm, they shattered. They could not defend against her power at all. Boom! In the blink of an eye, Yu's palm shattered many of the runes and landed heavily on the ancient bell. Su Zimo could clearly see that there was a huge crater on the ancient bell, and Yu's palm print was clearly imprinted on it. Buzz! Buzz! As though it had a mind of its own, the ancient bell let out a series of sorrowful cries. All of a sudden, above this ancient bell, an extremely vast power burst forth. Brilliance spread out, forming a halo of light. Light swirled on the surface of the ancient bell. He saw that the palm print on the ancient bell was gradually recovering. Since you don't dare to reveal your true body, you used a spiritual immortal weapon to test it out. I think you don't want your spiritual immortal weapon anymore. Yu's expression was cold as she leaped up and left Su Zimo's side, charging towards the ancient bell. This was the first time Yu had left Su Zimo's side since the start of the battle. It was clear that she was prepared to give it her all to keep the ancient bell. The ancient bell seemed to have sensed danger and did not dare to linger. It turned into a streak of light and fled towards the crack in the firmaments. Yu was about to give chase when her expression changed. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 1751. Suddenly, a figure floated down from the crack in the skies. That person's black hair scattered, and he wore white robes. He looked handsome, and his eyes were like stars. With his hands behind his back, he was as elegant as an immortal. He seemed to be a human from the upper world. The white-robed man stood in midair and swept his gaze across Tianhuang mainland. He muttered softly, "This small world is not bad. Thousands of races coexist. And there's actually a god." The white-robed man's gaze suddenly landed on the dragon phoenix's true body. He sniffed and his eyes lit up. The aura of a dragon phoenix. Ha 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 ha. The white-robed man laughed. Not bad, not bad. I can capture this deity Hoenn dragon phoenix and make them my celestial pets. However, I still have to find the creation Qinglian first. Where is she? The white-robed man scanned his surroundings. In a few breaths, the white-robed man's gaze landed on Kunlun ruins and Qinglian's true body. Su Zimo felt a chill run down his spine, and his hair stood on end. So she's hiding here. The white-robed man clicked his tongue in wonder. To think that she would fuse so well with flesh. How rare. Under the white-robed man's gaze, Su Zimo felt as though he was seen through from head to toe, as though there were no secrets. Su Zimo was secretly shocked. Be it the witch race, the one-eyed living being or the ancient bell, none of the experts from the upper world could find Qinglian's true body. However, this white-robed man was able to find her immediately. Although he did not know the cultivation realm of the white-robed man, this person was definitely more terrifying than all the experts from the upper world. The white-robed man's gaze landed on Nian Qi again, and his eyes lit up. Not bad, this Protoss woman is not bad. I can bring her back. Swoosh. The white-robed man's figure flashed, and he arrived above Kunlun ruins in the blink of an eye. The white-robed man looked at Su Zimo and said, I happen to lack the creation to refine an immortal pill. Qinglian, after I refine you, the immortal pill will definitely be refined. To be able to become this king's alchemy material, your death can be considered worthy. The white-shirt man said proudly. He stretched out his palm and grabbed at Su Zimo. A blood-red figure suddenly flashed in front of Su Zimo. You're courting death. A cold glint flashed across the white-robed man's eyes, as he unleashed a terrifying force from his palm towards Yu. Yu's expression didn't change, as she casually struck out with a backhand palm. Bang! The two individuals exchanged blows, colliding once. They immediately separated upon contact, releasing a loud sound. The white-robed man shuddered and his expression changed slightly. Su Zimo was also secretly shocked. Up till this point of the battle, The white-robed man was the only one who could withstand Daiyu's attack without being injured. Not only that, the white-robed man didn't even take half a step back. Su Zimo could not help but feel worried. However, Daiyu's expression was calm, and her eyes were indifferent as she glared at the white-robed man coldly. "Who are you?" The white-robed man narrowed his eyes and asked sternly. "Get lost." Daiyu did not say anything else. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Given Daiyu's personality, she was decisive to kill. Under normal circumstances, she wouldn't waste her breath on the white-robed man, nor would she allow him to leave. However, she seemed to have reservations right now. Could this white-robed man be so strong that he could threaten Daiyu? "You're merely a bloodline phenomenon. How strong can you be?" The white-robed man smirked and saw through Daiyu's facade with a single glance. Daiyu replied indifferently, "You're merely a clone as well." "That's the difference," the white-robed man declared proudly. "This clone of mine has its own essence spirit, and was condensed after cultivating for hundreds of thousands of years. It's not something that your bloodline phenomenon can compare to. I'm going to take the creation of this small world, Qinglian," the white-robed man declared coldly. "I'll kill anyone who dares to stop me today. Even if your true body descends, I'll kill you all the same." Before he finished his sentence, a bedazzling light shone from the white-robed man's glabella. Ugh! Su Zimo, Nian Qi and the others could not help but grunt under the immense pressure of the light. The light was even more blinding than the blazing sun in the firmaments, and possessed an incomparably terrifying might. "His clone has cultivated to this realm?" Daiyu narrowed her eyes slightly. "It's too late for regrets now." The white-robed man hollered deeply, and the light from his glabella released an extremely terrifying power that surged into his hands. That terrifying power formed a gigantic sword in the white-robed man's palms rapidly. Although the sword was not a true weapon, it was countless times stronger than the ancient bell just now. "Slay!" The white-robed man raised his sword and slashed towards Daiyu. "You want to kill me?" Daiyu's gaze turned cold. "Seems like you don't know who I am at all." Before she finished her sentence, Daiyu's figure vanished suddenly. A blood-colored butterfly that was about 10 feet large appeared in midair. 2 full moons were imprinted on the wings of the blood-colored butterfly, glaring coldly at the white-robed man like a pair of eyes. Su Zimo held his breath. Prior to this, Daiyu had never transformed into her true form. She merely attacked casually and suppressed all the experts of the upper world. But now, she had transformed into her true form against this white-robed man. "Phoo!" the white-robed man sneered. "Only the golden emperor butterfly of the butterfly race has some strength. As for your red butterfly..." The white-robed man seemed to have thought of something and could not continue. "Why you?" Blood drained from the white-robed man's face as his eyes widened. His arms were trembling slightly as he pointed at Daiyu. "Why you're the blood butterfly of the vast wilderness." The moment he said that, the white-robed man turned and fled without hesitation. Daiyu's wings flapped. The tremor was almost negligible. However, the white-robed man's body suddenly trembled violently. A series of gigantic cracks appeared on the sword that he had just conjured between his hands. Crack! Crack! Boom! There was a deafening sound. The dazzling longsword shattered with a loud bang. The white-robed man spat out blood with a horrified expression and wanted to continue fleeing. However, Daiyu's wings flapped once more. This time round, it was as though a terrifying hurricane had been conjured in midair, descending upon the white-robed man instantly. Chapter 1752. The white-robed man begged for mercy, but Daiyu ignored him with an indifferent expression. Since she had already attacked and incurred a huge grudge, there was no way she was going to let him leave. Daiyu transformed into her human form once more and entered the terrifying storm with light steps. The storm tore at the flesh of the white-robed man furiously. Within a few breaths, the white-robed man was reduced to a skeleton by the storm. However, there was still a strong life force within the white-robed man's body that fought against the storm around him. Su Zimo focused his gaze. Through the layers of storm, he could vaguely make out a ball of light the size of a goose egg within the white-robed man's skull. It was bedazzling. Even in the terrifying storm, the ball of light was not extinguished and shone with divine light that entered the white-robed man's bones to maintain his life force. If not for that, the white-robed man would have been torn to shreds by the storm long ago. Dayu leaped into the storm and extended her palm, landing it on the white-robed man's head. Dayu exerted strength in her palm and her fair, tender fingers pierced into the white-robed man's skull. Snap! With a chilling sound, Dayu reached out and plucked the white-robed man's head off. Ah! The white-robed man let out a tragic cry once more. Dayu ignored him and had a calm expression. Her fair palm reached into the white-robed man's head, and she grabbed the bedazzling ball of light in her palm before retrieving it. Why you've ruined my cultivation? The white-robed man could not finish his sentence. It was as though Dayu's retrieving of the bedazzling ball of light was equivalent to severing the source of the white-robed man's strength. In the blink of an eye, his body and bones were destroyed by the violent storm, and he was smashed into pieces. Dayu waved her sleeves gently, and the storm dissipated. The world returned to normal once more, as though everything that happened just now was just an illusion. Dayu removed the white-robed man's storage bag and shattered it. A large number of items spilled out from the storage bag. Elixirs, cultivation techniques, weapons, everything was there. There were even more items than the mystic and earth magi just now combined. Although Su Zimo did not recognize any of the items, he could tell that the items in the white-robed man's storage bag were obviously much better. More importantly, there were more than 10,000 of the elemental spirit stones that Dayu had mentioned. At this moment, Su Zimo was still unaware of how precious elemental spirit stones were in the upper realm. Elemental spirit stone was not only a cultivation resource in the upper realm, but it was also a hard currency that circulated in the upper realm. After all, the mystic immortals of the upper realm were unable to absorb the spirit weapons within the elemental spirit ores, and they had almost no elemental spirit ores. Tens of thousands of elemental spirit stones was a considerable sum even among the earthly immortals. This time, without waiting for Dayu's instructions, Su Zimo stored all the elemental spirit stones in a storage bag for safekeeping. Dayu held the ball of blazing light in her hand. She exerted some strength in her palm, and the ball of light quickly dimmed. In the blink of an eye, there was only a round jade stone the size of a goose egg left in her palm. It looked very ordinary. On this round jade stone, there were even a few faint lines of patterns. Dayu came before Su Zimo and handed the jade stone the size of a goose egg to Su Zimo, saying indifferently, "This is that person's Dao fruit. It contains that person's Dao technique." Su Zimo was about to receive it when his heart skipped a beat when he heard that. He suddenly thought of Wu Dao's true body. Wu Dao's true body was formed from Wu Dao's Dao fruit. However, the process of formation of Wu Dao's Dao fruit was extremely unique. That was because he had created Wu Dao and obtained the support of a grand wish. He condensed the mysteries of Wu Dao, contained the will of Wu Dao, and fused it with the faith of all living beings. That was how a Dao fruit of Wu Dao was formed. The Dao fruit in Dayu's palm was clearly different from his Wu Dao fruit. Dayu thought that Su Zimo was worried about something and said, "I've already sealed the power of this Dao fruit, and it's of no threat to you. Of course, given your current cultivation, you're far from being able to reach that level. You can keep it for the time being. Once you reach a certain cultivation realm, this Dao fruit might be of use to you." Although Dayu said it casually, Su Zimo could tell that the value of this Dao fruit was clearly much greater than spirit essence stones. "Miss Dai, please accept this Dao fruit," Su Zimo said. "Why should I take it?" Dayu smirked and shook her head. "Although this is precious, it's nothing to me. I'll just throw it away casually if I keep it." With that said, Dayu tossed it casually. Su Zimo hurried forward to catch it and placed it on a storage bag by itself. "What's that person's cultivation realm in the upper world?" Su Zimo could not help but ask. "His true body should be similar to the human emperor you mentioned," Dayu said indifferently. Pausing for a moment, Dayu continued, "He's someone from the heavenly realm. Given his cultivation realm, he has a high status in the heavenly realm and can be conferred as a king. It's not easy for his clone to cultivate to this realm and condense a Dao fruit. Now that I've destroyed his clone, I've sowed a huge grudge with him. Naturally, he won't dare to seek revenge from me. However, if you ascend to the heavenly realm, you must be careful. Of course, if you can ascend to the vast wilderness, you naturally won't have to worry about him. I'll protect you. Suddenly Su Zimo recalled something. When Daiyu saw that person, she did not attack immediately, and instead asked him to scram. Unfortunately, the white-robed man did not recognize Daiyu's background at that time, and wanted to kill her. That was how he ended up. At that time, Su Zimo thought that this person had a powerful background such that even Daiyu was wary of him. But now, he finally understood that Daiyu was worried about him. At the same time, Su Zimo lamented. Initially, he thought that he was already an unprecedented monster incarnate by cultivating the two true bodies of Qinglian and Dragon Phoenix. To think that just now, the white-robed man had a clone as well that was similar to his two true bodies. In fact, the white-robed man's clone was even stronger and more terrifying. Thankfully, he still had Wu Dao's true body. Wu Dao's true body that even Daiyu could not detect. Su Zimo still had countless questions that he wanted to ask and confide in. However, Daiyu shook her head at that moment. Let's wait a moment. Daiyu looked at the crack in the firmaments. If this crack isn't repaired, I'm afraid even more living beings of the upper world will descend. My phenomenon is about to dissipate. I'd better mend this crack first. With that said, Daiyu leaped and flew into the firmaments. It was only then that Su Zimo realized that Daiyu's figure seemed to have turned slightly illusory after this battle, and was no longer as corporeal as before. After all, the Daiyu before him was only condensed from his bloodline phenomenon, and could not even be considered as a clone of Daiyu. The continuous battle had taken a huge toll on his bloodline phenomenon. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1753. Right in front of the living beings of the 10,000 races, Daiyu stood above the firmaments and waved her hands, releasing streams of divine light that scattered onto the crack. As though it was pulled by an invisible force, the crack closed slowly like a miracle. Daiyu nourishing heavens. It was an extremely shocking scene. The storyteller old man, Long Ran, and the emperors of the human race revealed deep admiration as they bowed towards the blood-colored figure in the firmaments. Everyone knew that as long as the crack was still around, the living beings of Tianhuang mainland could be met with misfortune at any moment, and a calamity would befall them. Daiyu's actions were equivalent to saving the entire Tianhuang mainland. As long as heaven and earth were repaired, and the laws were complete, it would be too difficult for anyone from the upper realm to descend. Firstly, someone from the lower realm had to release a secret skill to summon. Now that the witch race was destroyed, apart from the storyteller old man, no one else knew of such a secret skill. Secondly, even if someone summoned, someone from the upper realm had to possess an extremely powerful cultivation to descend. At the very least, they had to be on par with the ancient human emperor. More importantly, even if the ancient human emperor were to descend, he would suffer an immense backlash, and his body would collapse. His essence spirit would be severely injured, and his cultivation realm would drop. Even now, he had not been able to re-establish contact with the human emperor's palace. Who else would be like the ancient human emperor, who was willing to make such a huge sacrifice to save the living beings of Tianhuang mainland? There was only one ancient human emperor. The entire process of mending the heavens lasted for a long time, and took a huge toll on Daiyu as well. Su Zimo could clearly see Daiyu's figure turning dimmer and more illusory, as though she could dissipate and disappear from Tianhuang mainland at any moment. Su Zimo remained silent and stared fixedly at the blood-colored figure. Unconsciously, he clenched his fists nervously. He still had many things to tell Daiyu. He was worried that Daiyu would leave without bidding farewell to him. After a long time, the crack in the firmaments finally closed completely without any gaps. Heaven and earth were repaired, and the laws were perfected. Tianhuang mainland returned to normal. The living beings of the 10,000 races cheered with joyous expressions. Just now, the scene of the experts of the upper realm descending was too much of a shock for them. It was like a nightmare that they did not dare to recall even now. Nobody wanted Tianhuang mainland to experience a calamity like that once more. Suzimo did not smile. Although Daiyu was still around, her figure was extremely blurry and could dissipate at any moment. Daiyu walked towards Suzimo. However, after taking a few steps, her body swayed, and she was on the verge of breaking down. Daiyu stopped in her tracks. Even though Suzimo knew that the Daiyu before him was merely a bloodline phenomenon, he still felt a sense of reluctance in his heart and wanted to welcome it. Daiyu shook her head and said, "There's no need to come over. I'll just talk to you. Actually, your current cultivation is already sufficient. Don't stay in the lower realm for too long. It's best if you ascend as soon as possible." Of the heavens, heaven of the upper realm of the world of the Tianhuang mainland of the heaven of the world of the world of the world of the world of the world. In the lower realm, Suzimo was a martial emperor who could call the wind and summon the rain. In the upper realm, however, he could only be reduced to the lowest rung of society. It was difficult for anyone to accept such a huge difference. Daiyu said, "Back then, I brought you on the path of cultivation because I wanted to resolve the karma between us. I didn't expect that you would be able to cultivate to this point. However, since you've come this far, I hope that you can adapt to the environment of the upper realm and work hard to survive." Suzimo could hear the concern and worry in Daiyu's tone. Daiyu said, "The upper realm is a gigantic forest that's even crueler and bloodier. You have to remember that even I nearly died back then." Back then, Daiyu was severely injured and came to Tianhuang mainland to meet Suzimo. Daiyu was so strong. What sort of expert could injure her so severely? Suzimo did not say anything. Right now, even if he wanted to help, he was powerless. However, in his heart, he was determined to cultivate as soon as possible after ascending to the upper realm, so that he could catch up to Daiyu. The next time they met, Suzimo believed that he would give Daiyu an even greater surprise. "It's time for me to leave." Daiyu sighed gently and shifted her gaze away from Suzimo to survey the entire Tianhuang mainland. Daiyu was somewhat reluctant to leave this small kiliocosm as well. Daiyu's gaze paused for a moment in Pingyang town before shifting to Tsongleng mountain range and the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. Suddenly, Daiyu exclaimed softly and her eyes lit up. She saw the 4 lines of words on the walls of the old temple at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. She had left behind the first 2 lines many years ago. "If you wish to be a dragon or elephant, you must first be a horse or ox for all living beings." Behind the first 2 lines of words, there were 2 more lines of words that were similarly sharp and looked down on the world. "Once the dust clears, light shines through the mountains and rivers." Good. Daiyu's eyes shone brightly as she nodded repeatedly. She could not help but laugh and praise. "What a bold spirit. You're not weaker than me." Daiyu looked at Suzimo once more. "I'll be waiting for you in the upper world. I hope that you can shine through the mountains and rivers of the upper world and meet me again." With that said, Daiyu's figure dissipated completely and vanished from the world. Suzimo and Daiyu finally met after much difficulty, but they did not manage to speak much. The 2 of them spent less than half a day together. He had many things on his mind that he had yet to tell Daiyu. Suzimo looked in that direction and sighed gently, feeling lost. "Young master, don't be disappointed. That senior said that you can ascend right now, and you'll be able to see her then." Nianqi consoled with a gentle expression at the side. "I'm fine." Suzimo nodded to Nianqi and smiled as well. As Nianqi had said, the matters in Tianhuang mainland had basically come to an end. At that time, he could ascend and leave for the upper world. If he was lucky, he might be able to ascend to the vast wilderness right away. The dust had settled on the war initiated by the primordial 5 races. The witch race was destroyed, and the Protoss was imprisoned by Nianqi to be brought back to God's mainland. Of the original primordial 9 races, only 7 were left. Among the 7 races, the dragons, Kuan and barbarians were the absolute winners. The remaining 4 races suffered tremendous losses and would not be able to recover for at least 10,000 years. Right after Daiyu left, a few bubbles appeared in the initially silent 1,000-year blood sea of Thousand Demon Valley. In the depths of a cemetery in the middle continent, a series of creaking sounds could be heard from an ancient coffin, as though something sharp was scraping against the walls of the coffin. Blood waves surged in the East Ocean. In the midst of this blood wave, a small boat strangely appeared. A fisherman wearing a green bamboo hat stood on it, and beside his feet was a fishing net. "It's time to reel in the net." The fisherman raised his head slightly and looked at Tianhuang mainland. He murmured softly, and a strange sanguine glint flashed through his eyes. Book Abode Reading Website. Chapter 1754. Butterfly Moon Mending Heavens. After the battle ended, the emperors of the human race, the storyteller old man, and the others did not leave. Instead, they stayed in the Dragon Bone Valley temporarily under Su Zimo's suggestion. Nian Qi had already returned to the god mainland with the Protoss. Su Zimo's heart was still filled with worry. Although the battle ended, Bloodface did not appear from the beginning to the end. The strange thing was that Monk Daming did not appear either. According to his speculation, the calamity of Tianhuang mainland started from the Thousand Demon Calamity 30,000 years ago, to the Constellation Calamity, Great Qian Calamity, and today's calamity that engulfed the 10,000 races. Bloodface succeeded. Although they won the battle, the 10,000 races of Tianhuang mainland suffered heavy losses as well. In the end, it even involved the descent of experts from the upper realm. The bloodline of experts from the upper realm was probably an unimaginable tonic for those who cultivated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. Su Zimo did not dare to imagine what realm Bloodface would grow to. Butterfly Moon did not mention this matter when she descended. However, Su Zimo believed that Bloodface's existence could not be hidden from Butterfly Moon. However, after Butterfly Moon descended, she was almost always fighting with the experts of the upper realm, and did not have much free time. In the end, Heaven Mending Heavens exhausted the last bit of strength of the Butterfly Moon phenomenon and dissipated. The reason why Su Zimo did not ascend to the upper realm immediately was because of the hidden danger Bloodface. After the battle ended, the emperors of the human race and the various races had to recuperate. Su Zimo persuaded the emperors of the various races to stay in the Dragon Bone Valley and gather together to prevent any accidents. Although he did not state the exact reason, the emperors of the various races felt lingering fear when they thought of the unforeseen events that happened to the dragons, Kuan, and barbarians before the battle. Furthermore, after this battle, Wu Huang's prestige had reached its peak and even surpassed the human emperor of the past. Part of it was because of Su Zimo himself, and part of it was because of Butterfly Moon. Since Su Zimo persuaded them, the emperors of the various races did not reject and stayed in the Dragon Bone Valley for the time being. As for the many matters after the battle, they were rather complicated, and the emperors of the various races left it to the patriarchs and mighty figures to handle. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Unexpectedly, Tianhuang mainland fell into a long time of peace. After experiencing this battle, the myriad races all chose to quietly recuperate. The Bloodface didn't appear either, as if he had completely disappeared. Other than some rulers who were seriously injured, most of the rulers who were recuperating in the Dragon Bone Valley had mostly recovered. On this day, Su Zimo, the old storyteller, and Long Ran gathered together. Strange, could it be that our previous guess was wrong? The old man frowned slightly and said, "Perhaps Bloodface has already ascended and left Tianhuang?" The old storyteller and Long Ran were both aware of the existence of the Bloodface. Back then Long Ran had almost died in Myriad Demon Valley. "I don't think so." Su Zimo shook his head. He believed that since Bloodface had made such a big move, there was no way he would leave quietly. Long Ran said, "In my opinion, the three of us should join forces and take a look at the 1,000-year sea of blood in Myriad Demon Valley. I don't believe that we can't defeat Bloodface even if we join forces." Su Zimo frowned slightly. Just as he was about to speak, his heart skipped a beat, and his gaze intensified. He had sensed the existence of Wu Dao's true body, Kunlun Ruins. In the depths of a lake, it was deep and dark without much light. There seemed to be a purple-robed figure lying at the bottom of the lake. Wu Dao's true body was in seclusion here and deceived the heavens and earth. No one could sense him, even if a living being passed by him. Wu Dao's true body would only be a lifeless rock in the vision and perception of the living being. At that moment, Wu Dao's true body woke up from his seclusion. The figure of Wu Dao's true body rose slowly from the bottom of the lake and gradually surfaced. He opened his eyes that shone with a resplendent divine light. Wu Dao's true body gained a lot from his seclusion this time round. Initially, there was no path in front of him. Without a path, he would not be able to continue cultivating. Now that he had perfected Wu Dao, he had created the remaining path. Wu Dao's cultivation was different from the immortals, Buddhists and fiends right from the beginning. Wu Dao paid the most attention to the cultivation of his body. The fleshly body was a huge treasure trove. It contained endless potential, waiting for the cultivator to activate it. After Wu Dao's true body cultivated his martial soul, his cultivation method was not much different from the immortals, Buddhists and fiends. There were still essence spirit secret skills, heaven and earth dharma characteristics and fusion. However, at the Mahayana realm, Wu Dao's true body did not comprehend any divine powers. Instead, he forcefully refined divine powers and fused them into his flesh and blood. From that moment on, Wu Dao's cultivation method was different from the cultivation methods of the immortal Buddhist and fiend sects once more. Naturally, one had to rely on divine powers to materialize and fight against their opponents. However, Wu Dao's true body refined divine powers directly, stimulating the strength and potential of his body continuously. Wu Dao's true body assumed a lotus position on the surface of the lake. His black hair fluttered without wind and his eyes were closed. The fire of his martial soul burned furiously, and the power of his physique and bloodline condensed continuously within his body. Wu Dao's furnace refinement divine power was fused into every inch of his flesh and bones, stimulating the life potential of his body. The meaning of cultivation was to continuously stimulate the power of life. All of a sudden, the power in his body reached a critical point and reached its limit. Boom! A deafening sound echoed from Wu Dao's true body. At that moment, it was as though some shackles on his true body were broken. A mysterious circular halo appeared behind Wu Dao's true body and emitted a powerful power. The surrounding void collapsed and the ground quaked. Under the illumination of the mysterious halo, Wu Dao's true body was like a god. Enveloped by the mysterious halo, the power of Wu Dao's true body was far stronger than before. Wu Dao's true body did not stop, and continued channeling the power in his body to condense. His true body's aura was still rising rapidly. That was the path created by Wu Dao's true body. Fate Will Secret Realm. After the conjoint body realm, one would enter the Fate Will Secret Realm after cultivating Wu Dao. Fate wheels were like the growth rings of ancient trees. The more fate wheels one had, the more exuberant one's life would be, and the stronger their physique and bloodline would be. In Wu Dao's true body's deduction, there were a total of 9 levels to the Fate Wheel Secret Realm. Right now, Wu Dao's true body had only activated the first Fate Wheel. Wu Dao's true body did not stop cultivating, and continued to break through the second Fate Wheel. Half a month passed. A second deafening sound echoed from Wu Dao's true body. It was as though another shackle had been broken. Another halo appeared behind Wu Dao's true body apart from the first mysterious halo. The second Fate Wheel. The aura of Wu Dao's true body surged, and he suddenly stood up, emitting a terrifying aura. Instantly the world changed color. Many living beings in the Kunlun ruins sensed the aura, and their expressions changed in shock, as though a calamity was imminent. Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 1755. 2 life wheels appeared behind Wu Dao's true body, emitting a purple halo that shone with divine light with a terrifying aura. Wu Dao's true body sensed the power within his body. Condensing 2 life wheels was equivalent to being an emperor in the cultivation world. But now, Wu Dao's true body's combat strength was comparable to Qinglian's true body and the Dragon Phoenix true body. Wu Dao's true body's breakthrough had not stopped. He wanted to condense a 3rd life wheel. Ever since Wu Dao's true body refined divine powers, he had only refined minor and major divine powers. He had yet to refine supreme divine powers. If he could refine supreme divine powers, he would be able to condense a third life wheel. However, it was almost impossible to refine supreme divine powers with the martial spirit fire alone. Wu Dao's true body had to control a second flame. Furthermore, the grade, level and potential of that flame could not be too low. Up till now, the only flame that was worthy of Wu Dao's true body in Tianhuang mainland was the Dragon Phoenix flames. Even the sun essence fire of the Golden Crow could not enter the eyes of Wu Dao's true body. However, the Dragon Phoenix flames was a taboo talent of the Dragon Phoenix true body. Unless Wu Dao's true body refined the Dragon Phoenix true body, it was almost impossible for him to control that flame. Wu Dao's true body had a calm gaze. Over the years, he had refined many divine powers, countless cultivation techniques and secret skills, and his mind contained a large amount of essence. Wu Dao's true body wanted to comprehend a new flame. Back then, Su Zimo had challenged the three tribulations domain in the Dao inheritance ground. The second tribulation of the three tribulations domain was the burning of the karmic fire. At that time, it caused him immense pain that he could not forget even now. At that time, the karmic fire that burned in the three tribulations domain was caused by greed, anger and stupidity. However, Wu Dao's true body had refined countless cultivation techniques and divine powers. Along the way, the birth of negative karma was not just from greed, anger and stupidity. Killing, stealing and lying would result in bad karma. The source of negative karma was karma. In other words, every living being was tainted with karma from the moment they were born, and had negative karma to accompany them. However, some of it was good and some of it was evil. Every cultivator was tainted with countless bad karma. Even Su Zimo was not spared. The negative karma of every living being was like a pile of dry firewood. As long as there was a spark, it would ignite a raging fire that would burn their organs and flesh from the inside out. That was karmic fire. Karma would not be extinguished. Karma, karma, karma. Karmic fire karma. Karma was everywhere. Even if you were a high and mighty emperor, you would still have countless negative karma on you. It was just that no one would ignite it. Even if one had comprehended countless divine arts and secret arts, there would still be karma in one's body. With karma, one would not be able to avoid the pain of being burned by the fire of karma. The martial Dao true body had a new understanding, an understanding of the karmic fire of the three tribulations domain. Waves of violent storms swept up around the martial Dao true body. The storm connected heaven and earth, containing a terrifying killing power, as if it wanted to tear everything apart. The storm was filled with powerful divine powers that shook heaven and earth. A peerless divine power storm. Initially, Wu Dao's true body attracted the attention of countless Kunlun race members when he came out of seclusion. Many Kunlun race members were already rushing over. Now the formation of this peerless divine power storm shocked many Kunlun race members. It's that person. Some Kunlun race members recalled something and said, previously, someone came to Kunlun ruins and took the initiative to cause a divine power storm. I remember too. Furthermore, that person could survive the divine power storm. Another Kunlun race member said, it was not a secret to the Kunlun race that Wu Dao's true body was refining divine powers in Kunlun ruins. However, these Kunlun race members did not know who he was at all, nor could they see Wu Dao's face clearly. They could only see a faint layer of fog. Didn't this person disappear? A Kunlun race member was secretly speechless and said, I thought that this person was torn apart by the divine power storm. I didn't expect that his return would actually attract a peerless divine power storm. Let's go and take a look. There were Kunlun race members rushing over from all over Kunlun ruins. In the peerless divine power storm, Wu Dao's true body did not circulate his qi and blood to resist the peerless divine power storm. Instead, he allowed the peerless divine power storm to continuously tear and baptize his body. Streaks of crimson light shot out of the martial Dao body. If someone's vision could penetrate this divine power storm, they would be shocked to discover that Wu Dao's true body was burning with scarlet flames both inside and outside. Karmic fire burning body. Wu Dao's true body was also wrapped in countless karma. And the power of this karmic fire even attracted a peerless divine power storm. However, The strange thing was that the scarlet karmic fire in Wu Dao's true body did not have any divine power. Karmic fire was not a divine power. It was an extremely strange and unique power. Under the burning and tempering of the karmic fire, Wu Dao's true body's flesh and blood became more and more condensed. The karma in his body was burned clean, and his bones and organs emitted a multicolored light. Behind Wu Dao's true body, 2 fate wheels emitted a faint light, and his aura became purer like a god. Divine powers are no match for karma. Wu Dao's true body formed a strange seal with both hands. It was like a lotus flower, and he suddenly said 6 words that spread throughout Kunlun ruins. It was like a law that followed his words. After these 6 words were spoken, the countless divine powers in Kunlun ruins instantly calmed down. The peerless divine power storm that was originally revolving around Wu Dao's true body gradually calmed down. Although this storm was still revolving around Wu Dao's true body, it was no longer attacking Wu Dao's true body. Instead, it was protecting him. After these 6 words were spoken, a vast pressure suddenly descended from the entire Kunlun ruins. It was as if there was an even more powerful will that towered above Kunlun ruins. In the peerless divine power storm, the corners of Wu Dao's true body's mouth curled up slightly. The burning karmic fire in his palms gradually transformed and condensed into 2 sparkling and translucent red lotuses. They were like the treasures of the world. These 2 red lotuses did not have any temperature. However, the aura emitted by these red lotuses was extremely terrifying. Even the peerless divine power storm had to calm down. After the martial soul fire, a second flame was condensed in Wu Dao's true body's body. Red Lotus Karmic Fire. This Red Lotus Karmic Fire did not belong to the category of divine powers, but it could refine divine powers. Even the peerless divine powers in Kunlun ruins could be refined by the Red Lotus Karmic Fire. Under the refinement of the martial soul fire and the Red Lotus Karmic Fire, Wu Dao's true body's cultivation speed would greatly increase. His body would become even more terrifying under the refinement of the 2 flames. Boom! At this moment, another loud bang came from Wu Dao's true body. Behind him, another purple fate wheel condensed outside the second fate wheel. His aura skyrocketed, and the strength in his body rose. With the appearance of the third fate wheel, Wu Dao's true body had broken through to a higher level. Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 1756. For the past few days, Su Zimo did not cultivate either, and was constantly sensing the movements of Wu Dao's true body. It was only when Wu Dao's true body condensed his third fate wheel that Su Zimo retracted his consciousness. After condensing his third fate wheel, the power controlled by Wu Dao's true body had far surpassed Qinglian's true body and Dragon Phoenix's true body. Although Wu Dao's true body had yet to transcend the tribulation and ascend, his strength had already surpassed his 2 true bodies. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed since Wu Dao's true body came out of seclusion. The emperors of the various races recuperating in the Dragonbone Valley had recovered from their injuries. After that battle, many emperors comprehended something, and even broke through to comprehend another supreme divine power. In the past 2 months, many patriarchs comprehended supreme divine powers, and became emperors as well. During this period of time, the races of Tianhuang mainland rested, and were unusually peaceful. The emperors of the various races were prepared to leave as well. Outside the Dragonbone Valley, the emperors of the human race bade farewell to Su Zimo and the others. Abstruse Emperor, when are you preparing to transcend the tribulation? Monk Empyrean Cloud asked. I'm the guardian of the palace after all, and have to guard Tianhuang mainland for a few more years. I can only leave after I find the next guardian. The old storyteller smiled. Empyrean Cloud, you've already comprehended 3 supreme divine powers. You can prepare to transcend the tribulation and ascend. Let's talk about that later. Monk Empyrean Cloud shook his head gently and hesitated. Why? The old storyteller asked. What's the problem? Long Ran said. Although the tribulation transcendence is extremely dangerous, no one can avoid it. You have to take this step eventually. Monk Empyrean Cloud laughed bitterly and sighed. To be honest, I'm a little afraid, Sai. The old storyteller was silent. The battle 2 months ago had a huge impact on the hearts of the emperors of the various races of Tianhuang mainland. Under the destructive power, even a ruler was like an ant. His life was like grass, and he could die at any time. For someone like Su Zimo, even if it was not for Daiyu, he had a strong will and was unshakable. Naturally, he was fearless and advanced with indomitable will. However, most people could not help but feel a hint of fear and hesitation. Su Zimo's gaze shifted. The other emperors fell silent as well. It was clear that Monk Empyrean Cloud was not alone. Suddenly an emperor said, "Actually, the upper realm is not as beautiful as we imagine." "That's right. Why are we cultivating? Isn't it to live forever?" Another ruler also said, "But transcending the heavenly tribulation to ascend is a narrow escape. Even if we survive and ascend to the upper realm, we'll only be at the bottom of the hierarchy. Anyone can kill us." The emperor voiced many thoughts of many years ascension, transcend heavens. Transcending the tribulation transcend of years of Tao transcendence ascension. On the other hand, it was also a kind of fear towards unknown places like the upper realm. The worries of the emperors were not without reason. If they stayed on Tianhuang mainland and exhausted their lifespans, they could still live for tens of thousands of years. However, if they chose to ascend, they might die immediately. Long Ran pursed his lips and said, "What's there to be afraid of? The path of cultivation has never been a smooth path to begin with. Since you've chosen this path, don't turn back." Long Ran was naturally fearless towards the upper realm. Su Zimo believed that Shura Yenbeichen would definitely choose to ascend as well. That was because Yenbeichen had an obsession in his heart. That was to head to the upper realm and search for a power that could revive Qin Pian Ran. This great battle brought fear to the others. However, what brought Shura Yenbeichen hope? He had witnessed the power of the upper realm. As long as he ascended to the upper realm, he would definitely be able to find a way to revive Qin Pian Ran. Su Zimo was silent for a moment before looking at Monk Hollow Cloud and the other emperors. He said slowly, "You guys are right. If you stay on Tianhuang mainland, you might be able to live for tens of thousands of years. However, if you ascend, you might die immediately. However," Su Zimo paused for a moment and said, "only by ascending to the upper realm will you have true hope of longevity. Only by ascending to the upper realm will you be able to control even more power and obtain a lifespan of 200,000 years, 300,000 years, or even longer. Only there will you be able to gain more knowledge and a broader world." Monk Hollow Cloud and the other emperors were deep in thought. The storyteller did not persuade them. For Monk Hollow Cloud and the other emperors, staying on Tianhuang mainland might be the best choice for them. Originally, the tribulation transcendence was extremely dangerous and had a slim chance of survival. Now that Monk Hollow Cloud was fearful, his chances of transcending the tribulation were even slimmer. Right then, a stream of light tore through the air from afar. In the blink of an eye, it arrived before the many emperors. That person had a Confucian crown on his head. He had a fair face, no beard, and was slightly plump. He held a folding fan in his hand. It was Lin Xuanji of Enigma Palace, the storyteller of this generation. "What's wrong? What happened?" The storyteller frowned and asked when he saw Lin Xuanji's strange expression. Lin Xuanji calmed his aura and said, "The Bloodvine race was destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of our race members died without exception." Ah, the expressions of many emperors changed when they heard that. Although the Bloodvine race was defeated this time, there were still a few emperors and more than 10 patriarchs in the race. Su Zimo did not kill them all either. In just 2 months, hundreds of thousands of Bloodvine race members were killed. "The emperor of the Bloodvine race is dead too?" the storyteller asked with a grave expression. "He's dead," Lin Xuanji gulped and said. "I still couldn't believe it when I heard the news. I personally headed to the ancestral ground of the Bloodvine race to take a look." At this point, a look of fear flashed through his eyes as though he recalled a terrifying scene and felt a lingering fear. That place has been reduced to a sea of blood without any signs of life. Countless Bloodvine race members, regardless of their cultivation realms, died. Lin Xuanji said, You're too reckless. The storyteller was somewhat reproachful as he turned to look at Su Zimo with a questioning expression. Who could have done it? The terrifying part of this matter is that the entire process of annihilating the Bloodvine race was done silently, and even we emperors didn't notice it in the slightest. Su Zimo frowned in deep thought. His first thought was Monk Daming. However, what was Monk Daming's motive for doing so? Monk Daming had already cultivated to such an extent after not seeing him for a while? Or rather, was it Bloodface? However, Su Zimo thought about it and shook his head. Bloodface was inextricably linked to the Blood Demon Dao Lord. On the other hand, half of the Blood Demon Dao Lord's bloodline was that of the Bloodvine race, so there was no reason for him to do such a thing. How much hatred did he have to do such a thing to exterminate an entire race? Chapter 1757. Let's go to the 1,000-year Blood Sea in the Myriad Demon Valley. Su Zimo's eyes flashed with a cold glint as he said in a deep voice. No matter who destroyed the Bloodvine race, he had to go to the 1,000-year Blood Sea and get rid of the hidden danger of Bloodface. All right, the old storyteller and the other rulers did not hesitate and agreed one after another. Everyone present was a ruler. With a casual attack, they could easily tear through the void and descend from the Dragon Bone Valley to the top of the Myriad Demon Valley. This time, Su Zimo and the others did not hide their tracks. After the war between the races, many rulers appeared at the same time, attracting the attention of many living beings. They did not know what had happened. This time, Su Zimo's Qinglian's true body and the Dragon Phoenix's true body moved at the same time. Wu Dao's true body was still cultivating in the Kunlun ruins and refining his divine powers, so he did not appear. Su Zimo and the others arrived above the 1,000-year Blood Sea and looked down from above. Back then, when Su Zimo, Monkey, and the others saw the Blood Sea for the first time, they were shocked. Now he had cultivated to become a ruler and stood at the peak of Tianhuang mainland. In his eyes, this Blood Sea was like a blood-colored lake. Strange. Monk Clearcloud frowned and said, This Blood Sea is emitting a strange power. Even my spiritual consciousness can't detect it. Apart from the storyteller and the other rulers did not know about the Bloodface. This is the battlefield of the 10,000 demons calamity back then. A ruler looked at the corpses that surrounded the 1,000-year Blood Sea and muttered softly. Su Zimo looked at the piles of bones under his feet and the 1,000-year Blood Sea. He suddenly narrowed his eyes and exclaimed softly. Looking down, he suddenly realized that the 1,000-year Blood Sea under his feet was like a blood-colored eyeball. The skeletons around him were like the whites of an eye. White bones and a sea of blood. These two scenes actually formed a strange and inexplicable blood-red eye. This eye seemed to be staring at the many emperors in the sky. A strange light flashed in his eyes. At the same time, ripples appeared in the 1,000-year Blood Sea. Strange. Why do I feel like I'm being watched? A ruler was a little anxious as he muttered softly. This place is really a little strange, another ruler added. Ah! Suddenly, a ruler exclaimed in shock. He pointed at the 1,000-year-old sea of blood under his feet and said in a trembling voice. It seemed to have blinked just now. What do you mean by blinking? Don't make such a fuss. Speak clearly, Long Ran said with a frown. Exactly. The ruler seemed to have suffered a great shock and could not explain it for a moment. With a grim expression, Su Zimo said slowly, This 1,000-year Blood Sea should be the eye of a living being. Just now it blinked once. What? The old storyteller Long Ran and the other emperors were shocked. Roar! Suddenly, a deafening roar came from the depths of the Myriad Demon Valley, as if a powerful demon had awakened from its slumber. That roar echoed through the entire Tianhuang mainland. No matter which corner of Tianhuang mainland it was, all living beings could hear it clearly and sense the terrifying power contained within that roar. The living beings in 1,000 Demon Valley shivered and did not dare to move at all. Even some of the grand demons and old demons were not spared. In the air above the 1,000-year Blood Sea, some of the weaker rulers felt their ears buzz. Against the roar, their bloodlines surged uncontrollably. The rulers' faces were pale. and they looked bewildered. Crack, crack, crack. Immediately after, gigantic cracks appeared on the ground beneath the ruler's feet, and extended in all directions with the 1,000-year blood sea as the center. An extremely strong demonic chi and blood stench filled the air from the cracks. This time round, all the rulers saw it clearly. Indeed, there was a gaze that belonged to a living being within the 1,000-year blood sea. It was mocking, ferocious and mocking. The ground beneath everyone's feet protruded slowly, and a mound the size of a mountain appeared, as though a peerless fiend was about to break out of the ground. Boom! There was a deafening sound and the ground quaked. A massive figure burst out of the ground and rose rapidly. Demonic chi coiled around its body and blood chi surged into the skies. 100 feet, 1,000 feet, 10,000 feet. In the blink of an eye, the massive figure had already surpassed 10,000 feet in height and was almost indomitable. Its knees were buried in the ground as it waved its arms. Its aura was torrential, and its might was terrifying as it swept through the entire world. Countless rocks flew everywhere. When the figure rose, the gigantic rocks that it sent out contained extremely great power. Many rulers retreated and spread out in all directions. Under the pressure of that terrifying aura, Long Ran reverted to his dragon's form. However, his dragon's form was only slightly more than 10,000 feet long, and was not much thicker than the arms of the living being. The moment Long Ran reverted to his dragon form, the terrifying living being waved its gigantic palm, as though it was tearing through the void and dust, grabbing the 10,000 feet long dragons in its palm. One after another, sharp claws extended from the terrifying living being's claws, and pierced through Long Ran's protective dragon scales, creating bloody holes on his body. Long Ran struggled. However, in the hands of this powerful living being, the 10,000 feet long Long Ran was like a python that was gripped by its weak point. He could not break free at all. Roar! Long Ran roared in pain. The sound of a dragon's roar shocked all races. However, at this distance, a dragon's roar could release an extremely terrifying killing power. However, the terrifying living being did not seem to have heard it. He exerted strength in his arms and roared, tearing Long Ran into two, dyeing the void red with dragon blood. It was an extremely shocking scene. The physique and bloodline of dragons were extremely strong. Even if someone could kill a ruler of dragons, there was no way they could tear apart the body of a dragon ruler. How terrifying was the power required to do that? The rulers were stunned on the spot, and their faces turned pale. At that moment, even if Su Zimo attacked, it was already too late. When Long Ran saw that the situation was bad, he abandoned his body and escaped with his essence spirit. Even though Long Ran's essence spirit escaped, the terrifying living being did not chase after him. He merely harumphed in disdain and grabbed half of the dragon's body, that was dripping with blood, and stuffed it into his mouth. Crunch! Crunch! The living being tore apart the flesh of the ruler of dragons and devoured it in large mouthfuls. After escaping, Long Ran hurriedly channeled his blood reincarnation technique, and condensed his body again. Even so, he was shocked and enraged when he saw the body that he had just abandoned being devoured by this terrifying living being. It's too strong. Su Zimo had a grim expression. The strength of this living being had even surpassed the previous Shen Huang, Underworld Witch Emperor and the others. At that moment, the dust gradually dispersed, and Su Zimo's gaze landed on the living being. The living being had a human face, tiger feet and pitch-black short fur all over its body. On both sides of its mouth, there was a pair of sharp pig fangs that shot into the skies. Behind the living being, there was a gigantic and thick tail that swept back and forth. Its gaze was ferocious and blood light surged as it glared at Su Zimo and the others. Taowu. Su Zimo frowned slightly, and compared it to the records in the ancient books. The name of a ferocious beast flashed through his mind. Demon Emperor Taowu. Right then, the storyteller old man, and the other emperors exclaimed with shocked expressions. Chapter 1758. How is that possible? The storyteller was shocked and disbelief filled his eyes. The Bayan demon emperor should have died in the 1,000 demon tribulation a long time ago. How can he still be alive? Su Zimo recalled the records of the 1,000-demon tribulation that he had read in Enigma Palace. There was indeed a demon emperor that died in the 1,000-demon tribulation. The Bayan. Ha 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 ha. The Bayan demon emperor reared his head in laughter as he chewed on the dragon's flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The Bayan swayed and surveyed his surroundings. His eyes shone with a blood glint as he shouted with a menacing expression. You guys are finally here. I've been waiting for a long time. This demon is powerful. Retreat for now. Su Zimo had a grim expression and sent a voice transmission to the storyteller and the other emperors without hesitation. Even his two true bodies might not be a match for the Bayan demon emperor, let alone the other emperors. The other emperors would only die if they went forward. The storyteller and the others had terrible expressions as well. The terror of the Bayan demon emperor had far exceeded their expectations. A strange fluctuation appeared in the void. Like a ghost, a figure silently snuck towards Bayan. It was Night Spirit. After the War of the 10,000 Races, Night Spirit had already comprehended two peerless divine powers. Even against the encirclement of the underworld which Emperor and the others, Night Spirit was absolutely confident that he could kill them one by one. However, Su Zimo's heart sank when he saw that. Before he could warn them, Night Spirit had already appeared and attacked. His gigantic and menacing claws grabbed towards the Bayan's neck. His sharp tail streaked through the air with a dark light and pierced towards the Bayan demon emperor's head. It arrived instantly. A hint of mockery flashed through the Bayan demon emperor's gigantic blood eyes. Without even turning back, he extended his gigantic hand and grabbed Night Spirit's body in a flash before Night Spirit's killing move descended. It was too fast. The Bayan demon emperor's attack speed was even faster than Night Spirit. Attacking later but arriving first. Not only was it terrifyingly fast, but Night Spirit was also unable to break free from Bayan demon emperor's palm. All it could do was let out a series of low growls. The Bayan demon emperor exerted strength in his palm, and a series of crackling sounds could be heard from Night Spirit's body. It was as if all the bones in his body were about to be crushed by the Bayan demon sovereign. The eyes of the dragon phoenix true body shone brightly as he channeled his essence spirit. A gray fog shrouded his fingertips, as though it was condensing the flow of time, and contained the changes of time. Fleeting youth. The power of time disregarded cultivation realms. No matter how strong the Bayan demon emperor was, it couldn't withstand the passage of time. However, the moment the peerless divine power was about to be formed, the dragon phoenix true body suddenly felt a wave of dizziness. The bloodline in its body surged and it swayed. The gray fog on the fingertips of the dragon phoenix true body quietly dissipated. He had failed. The dragon phoenix true body was at a loss. He had no idea what was happening just now. This kind of dizziness came without warning, without any reason, and did not conform to common sense. A mere god dares to challenge me? Bayan demon emperor sneered and exerted strength in his palm. Flesh splattered and blood splattered everywhere. Right in front of the emperors, the taboo god puppet was crushed into pieces by the Bayan demon emperor's palm, and blood flowed slowly through the gaps of his fingers. Night Spirit realized that something was amiss, and its essence spirit had already escaped and reformed its body. Don't go. Su Zimo hurriedly sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness with a stern tone. The Bayan demon emperor placed his palm that was stained with the god puppet's blood by his mouth, and extended his gigantic tongue, licking the flesh on it. He grinned with a menacing expression. The emperors felt their scalps tingle as they watched. They felt a chill surge up from the soles of their feet, and even their breathing quickened. Hee, are you guys trying to escape? The Bayan demon emperor laughed. How naive. Boom. The moment he said that, a loud bang sounded from behind the emperors. The emperors turned to look. A gray stone coffin broke out of the ground from a cemetery in the back mountain of Heavenly Dipper sect, and soared into the skies, hovering in midair. Squeak. An ear-piercing sound came from the stone coffin. Battle corpse. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Then, under the watchful eyes of the emperors, the lid of the stone coffin slid down bit by bit, and fell to the ground. A figure slowly stood up from inside. This was not a corpse but a living person. Although this person was in the ancient coffin, there was no corpse chi on him, and his body was full of vitality. This person wore a dark golden Taoist robe with countless suns, moons, and stars embroidered on it. His black hair fluttered, and his eyes shone with starlight. He had an extraordinary aura and was elegant. Patriarch of Constellation. Many of the rulers present widened their eyes when they saw this person. They revealed looks of disbelief and cried out in surprise. Su Zimo also frowned. The cause of the calamity of Constellation was closely related to Patriarch of Constellation. However, Patriarch of Constellation had already fallen in the calamity of Constellation. Unexpectedly, this person who had already fallen was now standing in front of the emperors. What was even more terrifying was that this person had already surpassed the Patriarch. The aura that he exuded was on par with the Bai and Demon Emperor. This was no longer Patriarch of Constellation, but Celestial Constellation Immortal Emperor. One of the emperors could not withstand the pressure and tore open the void, trying to escape from this place. Just as the void in front of this emperor tore open, Celestial Constellation Immortal Emperor smiled and slapped in that direction across layers of space. Bang! The emperor's body stiffened and his eyes widened. In the next moment, this emperor's body suddenly exploded, and his flesh and blood were sucked into the spatial crack in front of him. His primordial spirit fell into the spatial crack. Without the protection of his body, he was instantly torn apart by the void turbulence and died on the spot. Hiss! The emperor's expressions changed, and they secretly gasped. Just now, although the emperor who escaped had only comprehended one supreme divine power, the Celestial Constellation Immortal Emperor's strength had exceeded the emperor's imagination to be able to kill an emperor so easily. Bai and Demon Emperor alone had already made the emperors feel that a great disaster was imminent and unstoppable. Now there was another Celestial Constellation Immortal Emperor. Su Zimo's expression was solemn. He knew that apart from the two terrifying emperors, there should be another one. Right then, a golden beam of light tore through the air from the direction of East Ocean and fled frantically towards them. The emperors had strong eyesight and saw it clearly. That golden beam of light was an emperor of the Golden Crow race. At that moment, the emperor of the Golden Crow race had a horrified expression, as though he had received a huge shock, and fled in the direction of Tianhuang mainland. Swash! A gigantic white beam of light descended from the skies with an unstoppable power. It was incomparably ferocious, and seemed as though it wanted to split the world apart. Heaven Slash! The storyteller old man exclaimed softly. Heaven Slash was a supreme divine power of the Saber Tao. It was the most ferocious and powerful. There were few divine powers that could take it head-on. Chapter 1759. The Emperor of the Golden Crow race sensed danger, and hurriedly stopped in his tracks. He channeled his peerless divine powers and curled his body, as though he had transformed into a blazing sun that burned with raging flames. The Heaven Slash descended. Without much pause, the Heaven Slash sliced the blazing sun into two. Blood spewed out and scattered above the East Ocean. The Emperor of the Golden Crow race was dead. I'm afraid the only person in the world who can use the Heaven Slash is the Saber Emperor of this generation, Monk Empyrean Cloud said sternly. Smoky Wave guessed. The storyteller frowned slightly and said, although the Smoky Wave guest is strong, as far as I know, he has only comprehended 3 peerless divine powers. When did he become so strong? Although it was only a Heaven Slash, it was clear that the combat strength of the person who attacked had far surpassed the emperors of the various races. Another emperor was also puzzled. Furthermore, the strange thing is that he did not appear during the major events that happened in Tianhuang mainland in recent years. The human emperors looked over. Above the East Sea, there was a small boat drifting over in the vast mist. It seemed slow, but it was extremely fast. A person stood on the boat. He wore a green straw cape and a green bamboo hat. From afar, he looked like a fisherman. It's the Smoky Wave guest, Monk Empyrean said. No matter what, it's not a bad thing for us that he can rush over. Su Zimo shook his head slightly and said sternly, he has ill intentions. Everyone be careful. The hearts of the emperors skipped a beat. Right then the boat arrived at the shore. The smoky wave guest raised his head slightly and looked towards the middle continent before walking over. Behind him, the void cracked open and figures walked out one after another. They emitted powerful auras and were all emperors. The barbarian emperor of the mountain barbarian race, the Kuan emperor of the cloud boat Kuan, and the Kuan emperor of the tiger race were among them. Apart from the barbarian race and the Kuan race, there were also emperors of the other primordial races, following behind the smoky wave guest. Apart from that, there were also some emperors of the human and demon races. In the blink of an eye, there were close to 20 emperors behind the smoky wave guest. Tian Tao, the old storyteller, frowned. He stared at one of the rulers and said in a deep voice, "You're actually not dead." Ancestor Tian Tao was an elder of the Enigma Palace. He was already past his prime and had gone missing. Everyone thought that Patriarch Tian Tao had already exhausted his lifespan and passed away somewhere, leaving behind his inheritance. Who would have thought that Tian Tao had already become an emperor and was following right behind the smoky wave guest? Cloud Boat Tiger Rock. When the Silver Wave Kuan sovereign saw the two traitors who had betrayed the Kuan race and killed so many of his people, his eyes turned red and killing intent surged. He was about to charge out. The Dragon Phoenix true body hurriedly grabbed her. Yinlan had just become an emperor, so she was definitely not a match for Cloud Boat Kuan sovereign and Tiger Kuan sovereign. Moreover, now was not the time to settle the score with the Kuan tribe. If they did not handle this properly, they would all die here. It didn't take long for the Smoky Wave Traveler to arrive above the Myriad Demon Valley. The Smoky Wave Traveler, Bayan Demon Emperor, and Star Constellation Immortal Emperor, stood in 3 different directions, forming a triangle around Su Zimo and the other emperors. The Smoky Wave Traveler held a fishing net in one hand and a slender fishing rod in the other. He looked at Su Zimo and the others inside. "I've been waiting for this day for a long time. You're the one behind the great calamity of the barbarian race, Kuan race, and dragons. Your goal is to cause a war between the 10,000 races." The storyteller asked sternly. "You can say that." The Smoky Wave Traveler smiled and did not deny it. "Where's the Sea Dragon Emperor?" Long Ran could not help but ask sternly. The Sea Dragon Emperor had once attacked and killed the Star Dragon Emperor, causing a war between the 10,000 races. There were many emperors behind the Smoky Wave Traveler, but there was no sign of the Sea Dragon Emperor. "The Sea Dragon Emperor is here." The Smoky Wave guest took off his bamboo hat and smiled strangely. Under everyone's gaze, he transformed into a white-haired old woman. It was the appearance of the Sea Dragon Emperor. Peerless divine power, myriad transformations. The emperors widened their eyes in shock. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not have believed that the old woman, who exuded the chi and blood of dragons, was actually a human. Under normal circumstances, the myriad transformations did not have much killing power. However, to be able to use the myriad transformations to this extent and hide from the senses of all the emperors, everyone felt a chill down their spines. The old woman said slowly, "Although the Star Dragon Emperor is old, he still has some tricks up his sleeve. Other than me, no one else can do it." The death of the Star Dragon Emperor had left many doubts. At that time, Su Zimo had questioned how the Sea Dragon Emperor could kill the Star Dragon Emperor in a single blow, even if he was close to him. Now all the doubts had been cleared. "You're not the Smoky Wave Traveler." Su Zimo shook his head slowly. "Of course not." The old woman's eyes were bloodshot. "That Smoky Wave Traveler was stubborn and refused to submit to me. I've already killed him. Blood Demon Dao Lord." Su Zimo stared at the old woman and said slowly, "Since we've come this far, there's no need to hide it anymore. Let me see your true face." "Ah, Blood Demon Dao Lord. How is that possible?" The emperors were shocked and confused. "Ha ha ha ha." The old woman suddenly laughed out loud. Her body shook, and under the gaze of the emperors, she turned into a man with blood-red hair in a black robe. His eyes were crimson red. This man was extremely handsome and had a demonic aura. With his hands behind his back, he looked at Su Zimo and nodded. "Very good. You've guessed my identity. It's really you." Although the storyteller was mentally prepared, he was still shocked when he saw the man with blood-red hair. Blood Demon Dao Lord. It's really him. He's not dead. Some of the emperors who were older immediately recognized the Blood Demon Dao Lord's face and exclaimed. The man with blood-red hair suddenly reached out and grabbed at one of the emperors who was speaking. Poof! The emperor's body suddenly turned into a pool of blood. All his bones and organs were almost dissolved in the pool of blood. The man with blood-red hair was the creator of the blood refinement fiend scripture. This demonic technique was so terrifying when released by him. A ruler could not even block a single move from him. The man with blood-red hair opened his mouth and sucked. The pool of blood drew a bloody arc and entered his mouth. The man with blood-red hair smiled sinisterly and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his finger. He said slowly, I'm already an emperor. My title is the Blood Refinement Demon Emperor. I should kill you for calling me by the wrong title. The emperors' faces were pale and filled with shock. If Bayan Demon Emperor and Star Constellation Immortal Emperor were said to be unstoppable, then the Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor was the Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor. The Blood Refinement Demon Emperor in front of them made them feel fear. He was bloody, ferocious, and unfathomable. This Blood Refinement Demon Emperor was even more terrifying than the Swan and Eye Demon Emperor and the Constellation Immortal Emperor. The Storyteller's Residence Reading website. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.